My daily take today over at HartmannReport.com, pretty straightforward stuff. It's about this article in the Washington Post that appeared yesterday that, well, here's a quote from it. This is the opening paragraph. Pro-Trump activists who say they are in coordination with the White House are circulating a 17-page draft executive order that claims China interfered in the 2020 election as a basis to declare a national emergency that would unlock extraordinary presidential power over voting. I'll let that sink in for a minute. The guy behind this is Jerome Corsi, who's been on this program a couple of dozen times over the years. Jerome Corsi, back in the early days, I mean, back in the early 2000s, was the guy who wrote the book claiming that Barack Obama wasn't born in the United States, that launched the birther movement. Before that, in 2004, he wrote the book claiming that John Kerry faked his military service in Vietnam and wounded himself, the whole stolen valor thing, that arguably handed the re-election to George W. Bush in 2004. So Jerome Corsi has been a dirty tricks guy, and that's, a very clean way of saying it, a destroy democracy guy, a rig elections guy for the hard right, for the Republicans and their right-wing billionaire buddies for decades. And he's now behind this thing. Now, Trump has been, as his poll numbers continue to collapse, he's been basically screaming into the void, do something, somebody, please, right? I mean, he got the red states, he's starting with Texas, to re-gerrymander, to reduce the number of Democratic seats in Congress. He and the Republicans are recruiting election observers to challenge signatures on mail-in ballots, at an industrial level. You'll recall Greg Palast pointed out that if 4.2 or 4.7, depending on whose numbers you're using, state or federal, qualified U.S. citizen voters had not been either purged from the voting rolls because they were black mostly, or denied the right to vote, again, mostly because they were black, then you would have Kamala Harris as president right now, and the Democrats would control the House of Representatives. So, but that's not going to be enough to help them this time, because Trump is just totally in the crapper, poll-wise. So this piece in the Washington Post says that, this is what they're up to. Now, this is the key to this is understanding that they're talking about an emergency. You will recall this whole thing of the Chinese got into our elections was, part of the rationale for seizing the ballots in Georgia. Tulsi Gabbard, the Russian agent who's in charge of our national security now, really is at the center of all this, apparently. And this declare an emergency and then mess with the elections. This is an old song, right? This is what Hitler did in 1933 after the Reichstag fire, after the Parliament building. The Reichstag was burned by Marius van der Lubbe, the Dutch communist, mentally ill Dutch communist. He was probably put up to it by the Nazis. Hitler, went out and called a press conference and got on radio and said, this is a sign from God that I'm supposed to rule. And that was it for fair elections in Germany. In Turkey in 2016, while Erdogan was out of town, his military tried to stage a coup. He came back, they put down the coup, and basically they haven't had a decent election ever since then. He arrested teachers, judges, tens of thousands of protesters. The media outlets were shut down because he said they were fake news. Another emergency. Vladimir Putin did the same thing in 1999 with a series of apartment bombings in Moscow that they blamed it on the Chechens. And so he bombed the crap out of Chechnya and declared an emergency and took over the elections in Russia. Viktor Orban did this in Hungary. He declared a state of crisis over the Syrian refugees coming in 2015. And he's maintained that state of emergency ever since. I mean, there's a common thread in all this, and that is that wannabe dictators declare a state of emergency, a crisis, and then use the extraordinary powers that come from that crisis within the democracy to destroy the democracy. And frankly, right now, Trump doesn't have much of a basis to declare a state of emergency. But if he succeeds, if he hits Iran hard enough that instead of doing a symbolic reaction to us, the last time Trump was president when he bombed Iran, they literally called him up and said, we're going to send back some retaliatory missiles, to this army base. And so Trump evacuated the army base and shot those missiles out of the sky. It was purely theater on both sides. But if Trump actually hurts Iran, if he seriously damages them, and they activate their proxy networks, there are Iranian agents in the United States right now. There are Iranian agents throughout Europe. There are millions of people aligned with Iran in the Middle East, between Hezbollah and, there's just a whole bunch, and Hamas, and there's just a whole bunch of these organizations. If he does that, we could be looking at another 9/11, which frankly is what I think Trump is trying to provoke. And, think back to what happened on 9/11. George W. Bush used that not only to get himself reelected, but also to pass the Patriot Act, to consolidate all of our intelligence agencies, to take the word from Rudolf Hess, Heimat, the homeland, and apply it here in the United States as if we are some sort of ethnic homeland. I mean, we're not Israel. We're not South Africa. We are a melting pot country. So, and in every case, these temporary emergencies turned into permanent ones. So let me encourage you to call your members of Congress, particularly if they're Republicans, at 202-224-3121, and let them know that you don't think that Trump's state of emergency, no matter how he does it, particularly if he uses an Iranian crisis that he himself creates, is something that they should use to destroy our elections or to rig our elections or to seize control of our elections. This is a naked power play worthy of Hitler, Putin, Erdogan, Orban, pick your dictator. That's the direction Trump is trying to take this country.
We say fight back!
Today begins the Free Speech TV fundraising drive, the spring fundraiser. It's also the beginning of March. Happy March. Let's bring some new shoots here to Free Speech TV. Let's try to raise enough money this time that instead of falling a little behind or just hitting the mark, we can actually have a little left over so that the fine folks at Free Speech TV can use that to promote our channel, in social media, by advertising. Do the things that are going to get us new listeners. Wouldn't that be cool? So please pay careful attention to the fundraisers. Go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Call 877-378-8669 and support this incredible network. We really need your help. Today is the official start of the fund drive, so this is a great time for you to jump in and pitch in and help out with Free Speech TV, this great media. Thank you. Today we begin with a war that may shape not only the Middle East, but the future of the American Republic. The
Trump administration has launched what I call Operation Epstein Fury, a sweeping assault on Iran that killed the country's supreme leader and struck more than 2,000 targets. 4 Americans are dead from retaliatory attacks. Civilians across the region are caught in the crossfire. Nearly 200 young people in Iran were reportedly killed when bombs hit a girls' school and a gymnasium. Congress didn't declare this war. There was no vote. The Constitution's clear that only Congress can take this nation into war. The War Powers Resolution requires notification and approval and an actual attack on America, which didn't happen. Instead, we have a unilateral decision that has set the region ablaze. James Madison warned us that war is the greatest enemy of liberty because it expands executive power and erodes democracy. He wrote that no nation can preserve its freedom in continual warfare. When a president claims authority to assassinate foreign leaders and ignite conflict without Congress, that's not strength. It's a direct challenge to the constitutional order that defines America. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump said the strikes were so successful they eliminated all potential successors to Iran's supreme leader. He said nobody else could have done this but him. He claimed an Iranian insider reached out to negotiate, although he declined to identify that person. Among the confirmed dead are senior advisors, top commanders, and a former president. Iran has installed a temporary council. Its leaders say they will not negotiate. The president says the conflict could last for weeks. History teaches that decapitation strikes rarely end wars. They fracture power and unleash militias and proxy forces. We saw it in Iraq and Libya. When a president boasts that he alone can reorder a region, that's not a strategy. It's a gamble with American lives and global stability. The Pentagon has offered no public evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. Reporting indicates the administration began constructing its legal justification after missiles were already in the air. There have been no detailed briefings and no intelligence presented to Congress. In a democracy, the burden of proof rests with those who send young Americans into combat. If there was an imminent threat, show it. If not, explain why this war was necessary. We cannot become a tool of political survival. When secret evidence replaces public debate, democracy is weakened. At the same time, a troubling development is unfolding here at home. ProPublica reports that senior administration officials attended a summit of election deniers, urging the president to declare a national emergency to take over the midterm elections this November. Federal officials responsible for election integrity and intelligence were also present. Draft orders reportedly circulating would ban mail-in ballots and eliminate voting machines under federal control. Activists argued that only the president can nationalize the vote. The Constitution gives states the authority over the elections, however. A president seizing control of the ballot would shatter 2 centuries of precedent. Combine a foreign war with talk of emergency powers over elections, and you see something more dangerous than partisanship. You see the architecture of authoritarianism. Democracy cannot survive when one person claims both the sword and the ballot. Finally, the administration is tightening an energy blockade on Cuba aimed at collapsing its government. Fuel deliveries are a fraction of what the island needs, and millions face water shortage. Food distribution is faltering. 5 million people with chronic illnesses are at risk as medicine supplies dwindle. The Cuban regime is repressive and has long denied its people freedom. But pushing a population toward humanitarian disaster is not a moral foreign policy. America's strength rests on aligning power with principle. So here we have war abroad, emergency powers at home, elections under pressure. The question before us is whether the United States will remain a constitutional republic governed by law or drift toward rule by decree. The founders feared concentrated power in times of war. Their warning echoes today. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, rabbits, rabbits, rabbits. It's a brand new month. It's the 2nd of March. It's, I don't know, arguably the beginning of spring. Most people would say wait another month. But Operation Epstein Fury is rolling along. I'll give you the details on that in just a minute. Also, Trump said he had successors in mind for Iran, but they were all killed. Is that because Israel had different plans for Iran than Trump did? That's my guess. Also, why has the Pentagon offered no evidence to support its attack on Iran? In the second hour of our program, the plans for Trump to take the midterms are underway. Is he going to declare a national emergency just in time for the elections in November? We'll talk about that. A big meeting of people close to Trump this weekend on that very topic. Also, did Trump change forever who can be president and how they can serve, what they can do? Can that damage be undone that Donald Trump is doing right now? And Russia claims that Trump untied our hands, Russia's hands. What does that mean? I'll explain that in the third hour of the program. And is Cuba next? Who can stop him? We'll get into that in the third hour, too. But to start out, my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com, my daily take is titled Operation Epstein Fury. Is this about national security or political survival? And, this is, a bonus. First of all, this is, Bibi Netanyahu has been arguing for this forever, right? Netanyahu is, has been accused of multiple crimes, including bribery and, corruption in office. And the only way he stays out of jail is by getting reelected as prime minister. So this is, and people are really pissed that back on October 7th, Netanyahu had not, in fact, had pulled some of the defenses out for the communities, right around Gaza, leading to that whole, the Hamas attack. So, this is, in Bibi's mind, this is the thing that's going to keep him out of jail. For Donald Trump, I believe that he thinks this is the thing that's going to get the Epstein files off the front page, and to a large extent, he's right. War is always, always serves as a benefit in that direction. This morning, they're giving a Medal of Honor to a fellow who died in the war, and Trump starts out by lying, saying, I blew up the JCPOA, the Iran deal. And, it was a terrible deal negotiated by Barack Hussein Obama. And, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon, and used it against us These are complete lies. Trump is also, he's provided no excuse for us to attack Iran now. And the War Powers Resolution of 1973 that was passed, in the wake of Nixon, the war and the 72 election, where Nixon said he had a secret plan to end the war, and it turned out, he lied. We discovered that after the election was over. That requires an attack on the United States, or an imminent attack, evidence of an imminent attack, a Pearl Harbor kind of event. There is no such thing. Iran does not have nuclear weapons. Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. Iran was negotiating in good faith. Now, let me be very clear here. I'm no fan of the Iranian government or of the former Ayatollah Khamenei. This is an insane, theocratic, end times. They believe this, this Islamic version of the rapture kind of thing. It's just all very, very strange. Doing away with the Ayatollah, not necessarily a bad thing, but the way it was done, the timing of it being done, and who did it are frankly, in my opinion, all wrong. You've got Trump now violating international law. The UN's, our membership in the UN requires us not to attack other countries. We violated that law with Venezuela as well. Not to attack other countries or engage in regime change wars unless we've been attacked first. It's a violation of domestic U.S. law. He's, as I said, he's violating the War Powers Resolution. And now he's throwing Iranian protesters under the bus by saying that he's willing to negotiate with the Iranians. Now the Iranians are saying, no, we're not willing to talk to you. The conflict is also spreading. Khomeini was to Shia Muslims around the world sort of like what the Pope is to Catholics. Now, he wasn't quite, as unified and all that, but Shia Islam is different from Sunni Islam. Sunni Islam is, most of the Arab states are Sunni. The Sunnis there's no like centralized command structure. There's no pope. In Shia Islam, the Grand Ayatollah has been filling the role of essentially pope. Now, can you imagine how the Catholic world would respond if say, Russia killed the Pope, Pope Leo? I mean, this is why you're seeing protests now, erupting in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Lebanon. I'm waiting to see them pop up in other places like in Southeast Asia. But the conflict is spreading. And here at home, Trump is musing about using Iranian election interference in the 2020 election to seize control of our election apparatus this fall. And what's particularly ironic about that is, yes, Iran did intervene in the 2020 election. They sent emails to millions of registered Democrats basically saying, if you don't vote for Donald Trump, we're going to get you. We're the Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys were like, we didn't send that out. And, the effort was designed to help Donald Trump because the Iranians, this was the 2020 election, the Iranians believed that a Biden presidency or, back in 2016, a Clinton presidency would be bad for them. Those people are fairly tough. They wanted Trump. They figured that, they could work things out with Trump. Yeah, right. Now we've got 4 Americans dead, 5 in critical condition, more than 200 young people. I mean, we have struck we or Israel, one or the other, struck a girls' school, over 150 girls dead. And then we struck a gymnasium in Iran, killed a whole bunch of young people there too. And this is early days. As Winston Churchill said, once the signal is given, no one can predict how far events will go. James Madison kind of foresaw this. This was back in April of 1790. He wrote a letter, and he said, of all the enemies of public liberty, war is perhaps the most to be dreaded because it comprises and develops the germ of every other. He talks about how the discretionary power of the president is increased. Quote, its influence in dealing out offices, honors, and emoluments is multiplied, and all the means of seducing the minds are added to those of subduing the force of the people. He says the same malignant aspect in republicanism can be traced to inequality of fortunes, which war provides. No nation, says James Madison, can preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. And yet, here we are. So, this is just wrong. He is in violation of the War Powers Resolution. He's in violation of United States law. He's in violation of international law. And this is going to get uglier and uglier. I'll give you more details in just a few minutes. But in my opinion, the appropriate response to this is for Congress to impeach Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump as soon as possible. What say you? We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. Stay with us. I'm in Dallas, Texas. Hey, Adam, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. We're approaching the 1-year anniversary, and no one's mentioned this. Do you remember about a year ago, Taco invited Zelensky into the Oval Office and ambushed him, and
I remember
they were talking about, why aren't you wearing a suit?
Yeah.
And then something interesting happened. Taco turns to Zelensky and says, you, meaning Zelensky, are going to start World War III. And it's just another example of hypocrisy, but
it's
no
a Putin
one
talking
has
point.
mentioned this at all.
Yeah,
No one's mentioned this.
Yeah.
That Taco was saying that Zelensky was going to start World War III, and I was thinking in my mind, that actually means that Taco is going to start World War III because they're such hypocrites.
Yeah, every accusation is a confession. I mean, it's
Right.
become the mantra of the press here around this administration.
Right. But the worst thing about this is we've, used to have that debate a few months ago, who was worse, Bush or Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a few months ago, it was clearly, in my mind, Bush, because Taco really hadn't started wars. But then he invaded Venezuela and now Iran. So I'm thinking that he is the best thing to George Bush that could have ever happened.
Yeah,
Because
No, I get it. I think that he tasted blood, killing those people
Right.
on those boats and then invading Venezuela and killing about 80 people in order to seize Maduro. I think he tasted blood and he
Right.
loves it, and that's what scares the hell out of me. Adam, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Well, excellent points. Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Since early February, and this is in the Kuwait Times, there has been an article with Steve Witkoff, an interview with Fox News. Witkoff met with Raza Pahlavi, who is the exiled son, Pahlavi, who is the exiled son of Iran's last Shah.
Right.
That was ousted. His monarchy was ousted because he took all the
Right.
wealth. But Witkoff said, and these are quotes, I met with him at the direction of President Trump.
Oh, interesting.
And then he says, this is all online. Then he says, I think he's strong for his country, but this is going to be about President Trump's policies. And then here's a wild one. Netanyahu has a friendly relationship with Raza Pahlavi.
Right.
He went and visited Netanyahu, and he met with the
I know
Israeli
he's
government.
praised him too. On the other hand, putting Pahlavi in, he's been very clear and very explicit and published his papers on this, that he's happy to be an interim leader in Iran and lead the country to a democracy. He does not want to be the next Shah, and he does not want to be the long-term leader. I'm inclined to believe him. And he might be the one reasonable thing that comes out of this, but anything associated with the Trump administration right now, I'm taking with 16 grains of salt. Jessica, thanks for bringing that up. That was an important point. Thank you very much. 19 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Human beings have a couple of unique characteristics. The first is that we can be very tender and loving and concerned and caring toward people we perceive as being our group, us. We can also be extraordinarily violent against people that we consider to be them, if we think of them or this other as a threat. Probably the classic example of this is Adolf Hitler convincing Germans that, Jews were a threat to them and good Germans going along with the Holocaust. Well, this othering is built into our DNA. This is, ancient stuff. And the Republican Party, since the time of Nixon, when he started, picking up the white racist vote after Democrats laid it down in the 60s, the Republicans have been using this to try to other minorities in America as a political strategy. And this is really deadly stuff. There's a whole op-ed about it over at HartmannReport.com. Is othering human nature's deadliest instinct? Check it out.
They say it's for our safety. They say it's for the flag. But every time the drums start beating, somebody's holding something back. The smoke above the skyline, there's fire in the feed. Talking heads and battle plans and what we're told to believe. Congress left in shadows while the missiles light the sky. Freedom wrapped in camouflage and no one asking why. 3 names on a headline, more written overseas. Young blood in the rubble, blowing in the evening breeze. Operation Epstein Fury, hear the engines roar. Is it national security or settling a score? When the bombs fall heavy and the cameras blur the truth, tell me who we're fighting for when the war comes home to you. Operation Epstein Fury.
22 minutes past the hour. It's actually, you know, the name that the Trump people gave it is Epic Fury, but hey, Epstein sounds a hell of a lot more on the nose to me. We have a number of things that are going on right now. The 4th fatality, we now have 4 dead American service members. Saudi Aramco has shut down the Ras Tanura refinery and their export terminal. This refinery does 550,000 barrels a day. This is a major worldwide crude export node, part of the global supply artery. You're going to see oil futures go up. You're going to see the price of gasoline going up. Qatar has halted their liquefied natural gas production. Now, Europe used to get most of their natural gas from Russia, but they cut that off when Russia invaded Ukraine, and they've been getting their natural gas from Qatar. Qatar just stopped producing it. So this is going to be a crisis for Europe. And they also supply Asian energy markets. Reuters is reporting that 3 F-15s were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses. All 6 pilots ejected and are safe, apparently. The Straits of Hormuz are shut down. That's 20% of the world's oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz. Donald Trump is claiming that he had to kill the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, because. I mean, we know that for 10 years, Bibi Netanyahu was arguing to end the JCPOA. Why? Because he wanted to take down the Iranian regime. And you can understand why he might want to do that. You know, number one, it helps keep him out of jail. Number two, you know, Iran really was directing terror operations against Israel. And you could argue that Israel, you know, has a good claim to be doing what they're doing right now. You know, I've been in Israel when those kind of, you know, suicide bombings back when I was in there. But I don't see where that is our problem. Maybe I'm missing something here, but, you know, and Israel's certainly capable of dealing with Iran. So anyhow, Trump killed that at the urging of Netanyahu, and that then became the excuse. Oh, you know, Iran can now build nukes, really. Are we going to face terror attacks here in the United States as a result of this? Miles Taylor, the former chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security, his blog this morning, or his newsletter on Substack, was all about that, about how, you know, Trump has been dialing back the ability of the Department of Homeland Security to deal with terror attacks from Iranian proxies. And maybe that's because this is exactly what Trump wants, that he desperately wants an attack on the United States by Iranian proxies that he can use to declare a state of emergency that he can then use to crack down on the elections this November that he knows he's going to lose. I mean, this is all within the realm of possibility. The Pentagon, you know, met with members of the congressional staff, I believe it was on Saturday, and the congressional staffers come out and say, and Richard Blumenthal has said this as well, you know, and Mark Warner, the Senate Intelligence Vice Chair, have said, you know, this is a war of choice. They gave us absolutely no justification for this war. And to this moment, we have not heard any justification other than, oh, well, maybe they would build a nuclear weapon someday. Maybe they would build intercontinental ballistic missiles someday. They weren't building either one right now. Congressman Khanna says the American people are tired of regime change wars. Yeah, amen. Hegseth this morning went off on a rant about how we're not going to follow no stupid rules of engagement. Right. In other words, we're going to ignore the Geneva Convention. You know, the rude pundit It says, I don't know how many times it needs to be said, but rules of engagement are for the safety of our troops as much as they're protecting civilian lives. Effing idiots are running the joint. Another analyst, Leah McGrath, writes, no stupid rules of engagement is one for the history books and not in a good way. Toby Fogel writes, no stupid rules of engagement is a great way to go to jail for war crimes. Chicago Tribune editor, former editor Mark Jacobs says, no stupid rules of engagement means no Geneva Conventions or other international humanitarian laws which the U.S. signed and supported for a century. Hegseth and Trump are pro-war crimes. And yeah, they've committed war crimes off the coast of Venezuela. They committed war crimes in Venezuela itself. And now they're committing war crimes in Iran, along with the war criminal, Bibi Netanyahu. This is wild. So what say you? Let's process this together. I'll pick up your calls. It's 27 minutes past the hour. We'll get to your phone calls right after this break here at the bottom of the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, we're in the first day of the first of 2 weeks of the Free Speech TV Pledge Drive. Your support is needed. Let's keep this network going. Right? We've got to pay the bills, the electricity. Those electrons don't fly through outer space and back down to your house for free. And yes, Free Speech TV is a small organization with a dedicated staff that are overworked and underpaid, and they're doing a spectacular job, but they can't do it without you. Your help is needed. I get it. We're all frazzled right now. It's it's just an absolutely insane time, and that's all the more why we need Free Speech TV, why we need your support, why we need your help. So please, listen to these folks who are talking about what Free Speech TV can do and how it can help you, and call now 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org to make your contribution to keep this extraordinary network on the air. Thank you.
Today we begin with a war that may shape not only the Middle East, but the future of the American Republic. The Trump administration has launched what I call Operation Epstein Fury, a sweeping assault on Iran that killed the country's supreme leader and struck more than 2,000 targets. 4 Americans are dead from retaliatory attacks. Civilians across the region are caught in the crossfire. Nearly 200 young people in Iran were reportedly killed when bombs hit a girls' school and a gymnasium. Congress didn't declare this war. There was no vote. The Constitution's clear that only Congress can take this nation into war. The War Powers Resolution requires notification and approval and an actual attack on America, which didn't happen. Instead, we have a unilateral decision that has set the region ablaze. James Madison warned us that war is the greatest enemy of liberty because it expands executive power and erodes democracy. He wrote that no nation can preserve its freedom in continual warfare. When a president claims authority to assassinate foreign leaders and ignite conflict without Congress, that's not strength. It's a direct challenge to the constitutional order that defines America. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump said the strikes were so successful they eliminated all potential successors to Iran's supreme leader. He said nobody else could have done this but him. He claimed an Iranian insider reached out to negotiate, although he declined to identify that person. Among the confirmed dead are senior advisors, top commanders, and a former president. Iran has installed a temporary council. Its leaders say they will not negotiate. The president says the conflict could last for weeks. History teaches that decapitation strikes rarely end wars. They fracture power and unleash militias and proxy forces. We saw it in Iraq and Libya. When a president boasts that he alone can reorder a region, that's not a strategy. It's a gamble with American lives and global stability. The Pentagon has offered no public evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. Reporting indicates the administration began constructing its legal justification after missiles were already in the air. There have been no detailed briefings and no intelligence presented to Congress. In a democracy, the burden of proof rests with those who send young Americans into combat. If there was an imminent threat, show it. If not, explain why this war was necessary. We cannot become a tool of political survival. When secret evidence replaces public debate, democracy is weakened. At the same time, a troubling development is unfolding here at home. ProPublica reports that senior administration officials attended a summit of election deniers, urging the president to declare a national emergency to take over the midterm elections this November. Federal officials responsible for election integrity and intelligence were also present. Draft orders reportedly circulating would ban mail-in ballots and eliminate voting machines under federal control. Activists argued that only the president can nationalize the vote. The Constitution gives states the authority over the elections, however. A president seizing control of the ballot would shatter 2 centuries of precedent. Combine a foreign war with talk of emergency powers over elections, and you see something more dangerous than partisanship. You see the architecture of authoritarianism. Democracy cannot survive when one person claims both the sword and the ballot. Finally, the administration is tightening an energy blockade on Cuba aimed at collapsing its government. Fuel deliveries are a fraction of what the island needs, and millions face water shortage. Food distribution is faltering. 5 million people with chronic illnesses are at risk as medicine supplies dwindle. The Cuban regime is repressive and has long denied its people freedom. But pushing a population toward humanitarian disaster is not a moral foreign policy. America's strength rests on aligning power with principle. So here we have war abroad, emergency powers at home, elections under pressure. The question before us is whether the United States will remain a constitutional republic governed by law or drift toward rule by decree. The founders feared concentrated power in times of war. Their warning echoes today. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out. Welcome back, 34 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. What say you about what's going on in the world today? Tim in Aloha, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is falling into the Trump mentality as we speak. This is amazing stuff because you look at the literacy rate in this country with the people that put that guy into office. So what's happening now, all they're trying to do with Venezuela and Greenland and everything is draw emphasis away from Epstein because of the worldwide phenomenon this has become. So all is this Jim Crow generational base that voted for that guy, and I have friends all over the country, from Orlando to L.A. They hear these statements. They're talking about these victims of Epstein. Oh, they were a bunch of little hookers. They paid them well. They lived like queens. That's what they're saying. Okay, they're getting paid. They're getting paid again. That's what this is across the country. I have relatives all across. That's the scary stuff. That's the base. What's happening? Now what's happening? It's falling right into place. See what he's doing? He's getting rid of them Mexican rapists, right? What he's doing in the U.S. He's getting rid of them Muslim terrorists now, and the next thing he needs to do is get rid of them black city burners. That's what's going on. Because that's what that man was saying all along. You see what I mean?
I do.
That's where we're at. And the average guy on the street, like I told you, I've been in the same neighborhood 36 years. I have a good education. I was in sales and marketing for 30 years. I dealt with every age, income, and education level. I talk to neighbors on a regular basis, and most of them are concerned about what, Tom? Paying their everyday bills.
Yeah.
The big picture is, kind of out of the picture right now because they have to pay their water and garbage and mortgage bills, you see? Half the people in this country can't come up with $400. The average credit card debt for the middle-class American is $5,000. You see what I mean?
I do, Tim, and my concern with regard to this invasion of Iraq is twofold. Number one, I think that Trump launched this right after the stories came out that he's been credibly accused by two women who were 13 years old at the time of raping them, and on top of that, you've got this little band, this little merry band being led by Mike Flynn, who want Trump to declare a state of emergency and seize control of our elections in November so that the Republican bloodbath doesn't happen. And I think both, and I think that, if Trump can piss off Iran to the point that they activate any kind of a sleeper cell terror network here within the United States so that we experience another 9/11 kind of event, and I know some people are even starting to get nervous about flying, that would serve his purposes beautifully. It certainly helped out George W. Bush. Yeah, exactly. So I see those as the two big things. Those are the two main reasons Trump did this when he did it. It has nothing to do with ballistic missiles or nuclear or anything, because there are no ballistic missiles and there is no nuclear anything. Tim, well said. Thank you. Don in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Hey, Don, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Well, another thing is that Trump led the U.S. into this war with inadequate munitions. We're low on almost every important munitions. We have 11 aircraft carriers. There's only 2 there, including one that was ready to go home, where the crew is disgruntled, and there's apparently some evidence that they're sabotaging. The Gerald R. Ford has a toilet
system,
problem.
Yeah.
And the other thing is consider. With the death of the Ayatollah, I'm like you. I got no use for those guys, but martyrdom is a big deal in anywhere of any culture on earth.
Like I said, Trump killed the Pope.
Big deal.
Right? Can you imagine if Iran had killed Pope Leo the 14th? It's like the entire Catholic world would be up in arms, and there would be hell to pay. Well, Trump killed the Shia Pope, or the closest that they had to it, and that is not going to have. That's not going to go without consequences. This is going to stretch out for years, in my opinion.
No, and he was an old, sick man who was ready to quit anyways.
Yeah, he was 86.
And he's not in good health. So this was a good way for him to make a heroic exit, and that would serve his geostrategic purposes.
The only country whose interests are being served, the two countries whose interests are being served by what Trump is doing right now, are Russia and arguably Israel. Although I would say I'm not even sure this is in Israel's best interest. I think it's in Netanyahu's best interest. He's trying to keep out of jail.
And the Likudniks, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the Likudniks, absolutely. Don, thanks for the call. Ron in Hamilton Field, California. Hey, Ron, what's on your mind today?
Well, this all just relates back to me to the process of using territorial and tribal biases as a fear tool, and that seems to be this administration's game. And if that's the case, they didn't invent anything new to regenerate the sleeper cells for terrorism, because that'll give him instant right. The question to me is, will Congress or can it work fast enough? Because sleeper cells are probably been re-engaged now for many, many hours and ready to go, and we don't know what's in front of us.
Yeah. No, it's. Go ahead.
No, I just look to your knowledge and those around you. I'm in my 80s, so it's not much I can do that I once was involved in with, Soviet American Peace Walk and all those things going back in the 80s. Where are we now?
I think there's a lot that we can all do. We need to be reaching out to our members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, and saying there is no justification for this war. This man needs to be impeached, and Hegseth and Vance need to go with him. This is a crime against American law. It's a crime against international law. There are more appropriate and better ways to deal with Iran, and Obama had found one, right? Obama had this. He had stopped their nuclear program. So well said, Ron. Thank you very much. It's Tom in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Hey, one thing that people don't talk about. Who's going to make just a ton of money on this war? Donald Trump and Paul Singer, because oil from the Middle East is going to be more expensive, and harder to get. But guess who has a bunch of new oil? Venezuela.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
surprise.
it's paid out because a guy called Paul Singer, who gave Trump $5 million, owns Citgo now. He got it for like $6 billion, and it was worth about $20 billion. And now, guess what? The Middle Eastern oil is going to be harder to get. Guess who owns refineries to handle Venezuelan oil? Paul Singer.
Right.
And who was he helping with? Trump. And
Yeah.
guess who's and for selling Venezuelan oil, it goes into a bank account someplace in the Middle East, and you know who manages that? Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, that's particularly bizarre, and I've seen virtually no reporting on this, that, you know, he sold a whole bunch of Venezuelan oil for millions, and I think it was over $100 million, as I recall, and it went into a private account in, what was it, in Kuwait or in Qatar or UAE, someplace like that?
It was some Middle Eastern nation,
Yeah.
but it's under his name,
That's
under
right.
his thing. But this is a setup because they said the cost of a barrel of oil was too low for them to make money. But now that it's gone up like 6 or 7% today.
Mm-hmm.
And the price of oil going up, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
This was part of the plan.
And the oil industry donors to the Republican Party here in the United States have to be dancing on their tables. I mean, you know, holy cow, look at this, the profits we're going to make. Because, you know, the America is relatively oil independent. We've got enough oil, and we have had since the early days of the Obama administration. We've been oil independent. So, you know, but we do sell it at the spot price, the worldwide spot price. So the worldwide spot price goes up, and the profit for the oil industry goes up. Excellent point, Tom. Thank you very much. Roger in Seattle. Hey, Roger, what's up?
More on Iran, but also supporting some of your points. So I just sent a 3-paragraph email to Senator Fetterman, because he's now been identified as on the fence and a West Virginia wannabe senator that, we should support Republicans. But anyway, can I read those 3 short paragraphs, and then
why don't you just
comment on whatever
why don't you just tell them
want
what they say, Roger?
Comment on?
Just tell us what they say.
I spent 4 happy years at Franklin and Marshall in Pennsylvania. Are you going to be like James Buchanan from Pennsylvania, who's small-minded? I challenge you to attend any or all the memorial services of the fatalities of this undeclared war. If you allow debate on the War Powers Act, I'd be interested to see why we should have any more citizens die at this time. If you have not already, why don't you send condolences to the West Virginia Sarah Beckman? All of the lies of this administration of the emergency should be tragically evident. Their lies around migrants led to Sarah's murder. The lies, fraud, waste, and abuse, and imminent threat around Iran lead to the latest military deaths.
Yeah.
Lastly, I copy you with the representatives and senators of the email I sent this weekend.
I got it, Roger. I'm out of time. I'm sorry, but thank you. Good luck. Good luck with that. Fetterman looks like he's gone down the rabbit hole. It's almost 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Thousands more flights canceled across the Middle East, by the way. It's incredible what's going on. Stay with us. And welcome back. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Hey, not too much, Tom. Are we having fun yet?
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to say a couple things, and I'll just do it as quick as possible. Look, if somebody says there's a war is fought over oil, just as an example, are they wrong? No, they're not necessarily wrong. But remember, most wars, the catalyst for this escalating force, this runaway escalation of force, the catalyst for that is almost always an accident. Okay. And with all the, and with all this situation that's ongoing, There is no good outcome, Tom. I heard a Democrat this morning lament that this might be over in a few days because Iran already floated a deal for Trump, to enrich himself.
Right.
All right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, Iran was
over.
apparently negotiating in good faith, to the extent that you can think that Iran ever does that. Well, they did it with Obama, with the JCPOA. But I think it's also important to note that Venezuela has the largest supply of oil in the world, and Iran has, the third or fourth largest supply of oil in the world? And, what a surprise.
Well, I don't want to be disrespectful of the politics, but the damage is done. Look, what most Americans don't understand is the Pakistani ISI and, frankly, still the Kremlin are a couple of the best intelligence agencies in the world. This has already started to happen. Pakistan has declared open war on Afghanistan. Why? Why? Because they need strategic depth. Because when Iran collapses, regardless of who they put in there, all right, there is going to be major population and boundary shifts. All you've got to do is look back at the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and you look at the Radcliffe Line. When World War I and World War II, when the British Empire was in decline, just random arbitrary diplomats made crazy decisions. Yeah. That's where the United States, we are an empire in decline. We have a king that wants to basically enrich himself and cares nothing about his subjects.
Yeah,
Look,
I got this.
And we need to worry about what's going on. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me run something by you. You've got the Iranians attacking countries in the Middle East that don't host U.S. air bases. And it seems that the people who are firing the missiles are disconnected from the actual leadership in Iran. Like, we actually succeeded in decapitating the leadership and breaking that connection. And these guys are running off programs that were developed years ago, as a way of responding to an attack. And I'm wondering, is this proof that the leadership is gone? Number one, and number two, how long before these guys run out of their weapons?
Oh, the Iranian. Well, look, here's what I predict is going to happen for what it's worth, okay? I predict that Russia via Azerbaijan is going to do exactly what they did to us in Afghanistan. They're going to foment, pay for, encourage an ongoing insurgency to whoever we end up putting in charge. There's going to be boots on the ground. There's almost the Zagros Mountains are a perfect place to launch an insurgency from. No matter what, the situation just isn't good, and there's already changes in America. They're talking about ICE working a counterterrorism role now, ICE, they're going to use that to put Ron Wyden, support your Senator Ron Wyden. He's doing
even more resources for ICE. Yeah, no, I got it. Dave, thank you. Thank you. Always appreciate your perspective. 49 minutes past the hour. Back with you in 60 seconds. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out. 10 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, interesting article in Pravda today. Due to war with Iran, The new terms for ending conflict with Russia will be a shock for Zelensky, and it makes the following points. The EU will stop providing financial aid to Ukraine due to rising energy prices and the need to pay for those energy prices and subsidize its own population. The U.S. will not be able to provide Ukraine with Patriots because all the Patriot supplies, excess missiles, will be used up with the war with Iran. And in just one instant, the U.S. had to use 30 Patriots to fend off an attack on a UAE air base. And current production is only 50 a month and 600 a year. So there'll be nothing left for Ukraine to use the Patriots. And number three, Russia will become the sole supplier of gas and oil to China because of the closure of the Straits of Hormuz. And China will supply Russia with robots and drones, etc., to win the war with Ukraine. And eventually, the U.S. will have to negotiate with Moscow to end the war with Iran at the expense of Ukraine. And Ukraine will have to surrender the Donbass and all the other territories Russia currently controls. So, this is what they're telling the Russian people.
So as a former intelligence guy who speaks and reads Russian, does that make sense to you, George? Do you think that that's actually a reasonable analysis?
Well, I think, because regarding the Patriots, if we have to expend 30 to just defend off one attack, we're not going to be able to supply Ukraine with Patriot missiles. I don't know about this EU starting or stopping financial support for Ukraine because of soaring energy prices. It might be possible. It depends on how high oil goes. If it goes $200 a barrel, maybe the EU won't have, financial funds to support aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, that seems a little more tenuous, but
that does exactly.
But this thing of the natural gas supplies being shut off to Europe right now, because Europe had redirected their natural gas supplier
to the Gulf states.
That's right. Yeah, and that's now turned off.
They said prices already went up by 45% today.
Natural gas prices in Europe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So how do you see this playing out, George?
I'd have to think that, if Trump can get the Iranians to the negotiating table, the problem is the Iranians have so many of these drones and missiles. They seem to have an inexhaustible supply of them. They're spreading the war throughout the Middle East. I don't see this coming out good for us or Israel.
Yeah, it's
we're using multi-million-dollar Patriots, etc., to take out $20,000 drones, and the Iranians have thousands of them. So just by attrition, they're going to be able to exhaust all the anti-defense missile systems, etc. We'll burn through them quicker than we can resupply them.
Yeah. I'm concerned that this could end very badly, and that in part it could also. Do you share my concerns that we might be under domestic attack? 9/11 style.
Definitely. I'm sure that the Iranians have plenty of sleeper cells in the U.S. and like that guy, where was it, in Texas, the lone wolf. There'll be some of those people that won't even need the Iranians to say, go get them. They'll just do it on their own.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about this. George, it's always great hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Same here, Tom, and I enjoy watching on Free Speech, and keep up the good work and keep us informed.
Thank you, George. Will do. Sarah in Fort Worth, Texas. Hey, Sarah, what's on your mind today?
Oh, goodness. Well, first of all, I had to have a spinal surgery, and I've been out for a month.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
In the hospital, at least I had MS now, which wasn't much, but, but the other thing is when I got over to rehab, the only thing they had was CNN, everything Fox, and then the regular NBC that has shows. And I got this text message Sunday, which is crazy. The for anybody from Texas, I would like to know, one, have they received anything? And also, I want to get your input on what to do. I haven't pressed on anything, but the text came from a number 153.
Don't do that. Don't put out the number, okay. Sarah. What's the point you're trying to make? I just have a few seconds left here.
I'll just read the text. It says, Sarah, recent records show that your housemate, Gary, my husband, by the way, has already voted, but you may not have voted yet. This data could be old, and we are not election officials.
Do not reply to that. This is a scam.
I know, but my husband also said, how do they know that I voted? You know,
those records are public. Anybody can get access to that information. The record of who you voted for is not public. That's, we have secret ballots in the United States. But whether you're registered and whether you voted, that information is part of a public database in Texas and pretty much every other state, as far as I know. So, but. So
the other question I have is where can I look up? Because I'm afraid that my
go to vote.org.
Changed.
vote.org, and you can look up yourself. Sarah, thanks for the call. Good talking to you. We'll be back. It's we're hitting the top of the hour. On the other side of the break, the plans for Trump's takeover of the midterm elections appear to be underway. I'll give you the details right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
We've all gotten so used to living in a country where people are trying to crowdfund like cancer research for children. St. Jude's is a wonderful charity, but we're the only developed country in the world that needs, where you have to go to people and beg for money in order to treat children with cancer. Or Shriners, I mean, another great charity, but shouldn't we all be funding children who are born with birth defects and problems like that? We're probably the only country in the world where you can sell your life insurance policy because Social Security doesn't cover your retirement. I mean, it's probably not happening anywhere else in the world. Or reverse mortgage your home because you can't afford it. I mean, this is crazy that we are living in a country where No Kid Hungry, a charity. You can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed I wrote about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled America's Sickest Reality Show, Crowdfunding Cancer Care While Billionaires Hoard Billions. Check it out. This is a critical time, not only in American history and apparently world history, but also it's a critical time for independent media, like Free Speech TV. You've got right-wing billionaires like the Ellison family having bought CBS, and now they're trying to buy CNN. It looks like they just cut the deal. And, of course, the Washington Post is gone. The Los Angeles Times is gone. You got the Fox News empire. You got 1,500 right-wing radio stations. The right-wing sphere is absolutely massive. And standing up to that is this little engine that could, Free Speech TV, right here. This is us. And you can be a part of it. You can help promote Free Speech TV. You can help keep Free Speech TV alive, help keep Free Speech TV going by calling 877-378-8669 now, or going to freespeech.org and making your contribution. And by the way, monthly contributions, becoming a sustaining member, the key to everything. It's so important. So please call now or check out our website.
Today we begin with a war that may shape not only the Middle East, but the future of the American Republic. The Trump administration has launched what I call Operation Epstein Fury, a sweeping assault on Iran that killed the country's supreme leader and struck more than 2,000 targets. 4 Americans are dead from retaliatory attacks. Civilians across the region are caught in the crossfire. Nearly 200 young people in Iran were reportedly killed when bombs hit a girls' school and a gymnasium. Congress didn't declare this war. There was no vote. The Constitution's clear that only Congress can take this nation into war. The War Powers Resolution requires notification and approval and an actual attack on America, which didn't happen. Instead, we have a unilateral decision that has set the region ablaze. James Madison warned us that war is the greatest enemy of liberty because it expands executive power and erodes democracy. He wrote that no nation can preserve its freedom in continual warfare. When a president claims authority to assassinate foreign leaders and ignite conflict without Congress, that's not strength. It's a direct challenge to the constitutional order that defines America. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump said the strikes were so successful they eliminated all potential successors to Iran's supreme leader. He said nobody else could have done this but him. He claimed an Iranian insider reached out to negotiate, although he declined to identify that person. Among the confirmed dead are senior advisors, top commanders, and a former president. Iran has installed a temporary council. Its leaders say they will not negotiate. The president says the conflict could last for weeks. History teaches that decapitation strikes rarely end wars. They fracture power and unleash militias and proxy forces. We saw it in Iraq and Libya. When a president boasts that he alone can reorder a region, that's not a strategy. It's a gamble with American lives and global stability. The Pentagon has offered no public evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. Reporting indicates the administration began constructing its legal justification after missiles were already in the air. There have been no detailed briefings and no intelligence presented to Congress. In a democracy, the burden of proof rests with those who send young Americans into combat. If there was an imminent threat, show it. If not, explain why this war was necessary. We cannot become a tool of political survival. When secret evidence replaces public debate, democracy is weakened. At the same time, a troubling development is unfolding here at home. ProPublica reports that senior administration officials attended a summit of election deniers, urging the president to declare a national emergency to take over the midterm elections this November. Federal officials responsible for election integrity and intelligence were also present. Draft orders reportedly circulating would ban mail-in ballots and eliminate voting machines under federal control. Activists argued that only the president can nationalize the vote. The Constitution gives states the authority over the elections, however. A president seizing control of the ballot would shatter 2 centuries of precedent. Combine a foreign war with talk of emergency powers over elections, and you see something more dangerous than partisanship. You see the architecture of authoritarianism. Democracy cannot survive when one person claims both the sword and the ballot. Finally, the administration is tightening an energy blockade on Cuba aimed at collapsing its government. Fuel deliveries are a fraction of what the island needs, and millions face water shortage. Food distribution is faltering. 5 million people with chronic illnesses are at risk as medicine supplies dwindle. The Cuban regime is repressive and has long denied its people freedom. But pushing a population toward humanitarian disaster is not a moral foreign policy. America's strength rests on aligning power with principle. So here we have war abroad, emergency powers at home, elections under pressure. The question before us is whether the United States will remain a constitutional republic governed by law or drift toward rule by decree. The founders feared concentrated power in times of war. Their warning echoes today. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the second hour of today's program. Remember Mike Flynn? He was the super QAnon guy. I mean, he was once our national security advisor in the first Trump administration, but has increasingly, kind of gone down the QAnon, the ultra-Christian fanatic, some would say neo-fascist rabbit hole. And he is, he's participating in, or perhaps even at the center of, I'm not certain, this Washington Post report about the election integrity network Cleta Mitchell runs, and all of this whole thing of, let's block the November election because the Democrats are engaged in cheating. They've got too many black people and brown people voting who shouldn't be allowed to vote, and and they vote for Democrats, and we can't have that, and quack quack quack. And so this is a report from Talking Points memo, John Light. It's titled, Trump officials attended a summit of election deniers who want the president to take over the midterms. And it's a pretty good summary of what's going on here. Cleta Mitchell, who has been, out here squealing and going on forever about, the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. And Kari Lake, who Trump put in charge of the Voice of America, who then killed the Voice of America and basically turned our ability to spread pro-democracy propaganda around the world over to Russia and China, who are now broadcasting on many of the same frequencies instead of us. Got together, they had this meeting, and there were 6 federal officials there, which is very concerning. I'll just go through it with you. This was a summit last week in which prominent figures who worked to overturn Trump's 2020 election loss pressed Trump to declare a national emergency to take over this year's midterms. The event was convened by Michael Flynn and attended by Cleta Mitchell, who directs the Election Integrity Network, a group that has spread false claims about election fraud and non-citizen voting. The Washington Post reported Thursday that activists associated with those at the summit had been circulating a draft of an executive order that would ban mail-in ballots and get rid of voting machines as part of a federal takeover. They write, the Talking Points memo notes, the coordination between those inside and outside the government represents a breakdown of crucial guardrails, experts on U.S. elections said. This is Brendan Fisher, who's been a guest on this program many, many times. He's now a director at the Campaign Legal Center, and we should get him on, Sean, to talk about this. Brendan's an old friend of the show. It's been a long time. He says the meeting shows that the same people who tried to overturn the 2020 election have only grown better organized and are now embedded in the machinery of our government. He goes on, this creates substantial risk that the administration is laying the groundwork to improperly reshape elections ahead of the midterms or even go against the will of the voters. There were 6 federal officials at this meeting. 5 of the 6 refused to make any comments to ProPublica. The 6th was just, an anodyne comment. Trump told PBS News that he was not considering an emergency order, although in the past he's said that he was open to it. And you're looking at highly probable, massive Republican losses this fall. Donald Trump, in fact, told Dan Bongino, my old debating partner, that Republicans need to, quote, take over elections and nationalize the voting, end quote. And some of the people who were at this meeting, one was a guy named Clay Perrick, a special government employee at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. In other words, he works for Tulsi Gabbard, who's helping Olson with the 2020. They're looking into the possibility that China or Iran rigged the 2020 election on behalf of Joe Biden. Another is Mac Warner, who handled election litigation at the Justice Department. A third administration official who attended the summit, Marcy McCarthy, directs communications for the nation's Cyber Defense Agency, which oversees the security of election infrastructure like voting machines. And then Kari Lake, who Trump appointed as a senior advisor at the U.S. Agency for Global Media, was a featured speaker. She, of course, lost a race for the United States Senate in 2022 in Arizona and has been squealing ever since that that election was rigged and stolen by Democrats and brown people and, you know, quack, quack, quack. Patrick Byrne, the billionaire former Overstock CEO, was on Lindell TV and says that Trump has only, quote, played nice so far in not seizing control of our elections. But at some point, Byrne said, he's got to do something, the muscular thing, declare a national emergency. So here you got a right-wing billionaire, the Overstock.com guy, and then Will Huff, another person close to the administration who was there, who has advocated for doing away with voting machines, told a conservative vlogger that the White House lawyer Olson and other administration officials would take the consensus of the gathering back to Trump. Huff says it's got to be a national emergency. He was, by the way, the campaign manager for a Republican candidate for Arkansas Secretary of State. So, you know, what's going on here is pretty straightforward. These people are trying to come up with an emergency, a rationale for Trump to issue an executive order and essentially seize control of the election this November. And there are multiple avenues through which he could arguably do this. And they're apparently taking this very seriously. And I would think that Trump will too. I mean, you know, Trump will do pretty much anything to stay out of jail. It certainly looks like the only reason he decided to run for president again, you know, with all the risks and associated hassles, was because he thought that if he didn't run for president, he was going to go to jail, and he probably would have. I mean, this is a guy who, is, I would say, credibly alleged to have raped underage girls. He was convicted of tax and insurance and business fraud, and his companies were convicted. I mean, both. He was convicted of essentially raping E. Jean Carroll. I realize you call it adjudicated, whatever. And he's looking at jail. His sons have been engaging in all these corrupt schemes all around the world. His son-in-law, the same thing. These guys have become billionaires off the presidency. Something that, you know, has never happened before. I mean, we've had presidents leave office with a little more money than they came in. Obama's probably a good example, but he got that from selling a book that hit the New York Times bestseller list. And from, you know, and Bill Clinton made money on speeches. Those are arguably, you know, far more legitimate than cutting a deal with a foreign government in exchange for giving them, you know, high security, top secret chips, which is what Trump did with the UAE. And, you know, and they poured billions of dollars into his company. So I think that he's got a lot to lose here. He's got a lot at risk, as does his family, as do those people around him, as do the people who are ignoring the law and the Constitution, you know, like Kristi Noem and Thom Hartmann. So I wouldn't put anything past these guys. I'm very concerned about this fall's elections. We all need to stay awake and active.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
14 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a minute. And welcome back. David in Nacogdoches, Texas, watching us on YouTube. Hey, David, what's up?
You know, Tom, thanks for all you do. I love your channel. My opinion is Trump bombed Iran because he told them if they give him $1 billion, he'd do whatever he could to make them record profits. And now the oil companies are going to make record profits.
Well, that did happen. I mean, he was in that meeting with them, and he said, give me $1 billion, and I'll do whatever you want. And he's been doing it. He's gutting, you know, the EPA just stopped enforcing the clean air rules. He's massive subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. He gutted all the green programs, or most all of the green programs that Biden and Congress passed. He's withholding funds. He's, on and on and on. And I think you're absolutely right, David. The oil companies are going to make a fortune out of this thing.
Tom, Tom, you got to remember one thing. Everything we do has consequences.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. I think you're absolutely right. Thank you for the call. Vince in Wellsville, Kansas. Hey, Vince, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Gosh, a lot of things today. The one thing that I've been thinking about a bit is the talk about impeaching Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you have to look at who's going to be in line after him. Now, Richard Nixon had, what was his name? Was it Nice? I can't remember. He was just a dirty little footprint in history. But there's a line of secession. And how deep do you have to go in that before you find people that are qualified to even tell you what time it is?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the his toddler lapdog vice president, what's he going to do for us?
Oh, I think Vance is more than a lapdog. I think Vance is an intellectual architect of fascism in the United States. He's Peter Thiel's disciple.
Yeah, he's just another one of the United Snakes. Yeah. But you know, it's just if you go down the line of secession.
All right. Well, the one after Vance is Mike Johnson, for God's sake. You know, the most ineffective speaker in the history of the House of Representatives.
If they follow it out.
Say what?
We could end up with President Hakeem if they follow the line of secession, and that might not be so bad.
It goes President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, and then it kicks over to the cabinet. It doesn't go to the minority party's next speaker guy.
Eventually, it ends up in Congress, and they're all snakes anyway. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I think Marco Rubio is probably the guy who would be next in line on that. I have to. It's been a while since I've looked at the list of presidential secession, but I get it.
Trustworthy.
I get it. Vince,
he's as trustworthy as they come.
Who, Marco Rubio?
Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vince. Good to hear from you. This is very problematic. And if we impeach Trump and impeach Vance, oh my God. I mean, it's important to do, but Mike Johnson, may not be as crazy or destructive as these guys. I just don't know. I don't think anybody does. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them.
They said the law would hold. They said the court would stand. But what happens to a nation when power slips its hands? There's a man on courthouse steps with a paper in his hand. Judge said set him free, but they changed the rules again. 70,000 locked away while the gavel hits the wood. On paper we're still righteous, but the streets say something's wrong. When the rulings don't matter and the losing side won't lose. When the law becomes a hallway, power walks straight through. No tanks roll down Main Street, no trumpet sounds the fall. It's quiet when a republic breaks, when the court can't stop it all.
20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So this is a fascinating. Alexander Burns is a columnist with Politico. And he's addressing a question that I think many of us have considered and are concerned about, and that is, how is the Trump presidency reshaping the presidency itself for future presidents? You know, arguably there could be an upside and a downside to this. The downside, obviously, is that Trump has reinvented the presidency essentially as a king. You know, as he's gutted the balance of power and the normal protections that the Constitution provides. He's ignoring them. And, you know, odds are that there will be some, you know, enough blowback to this that some of that will be recovered probably long after Trump is gone. But I go back to my reading of the history of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's presidency. And he did an awful lot of stuff, good stuff, you know, creating federal agencies, the CCC, the WPA, you know, things that put Americans back to work and got us out of the Great Depression. He did an awful lot of that by executive order. And those executive orders were challenged. Many of them were struck down by the Supreme Court. They were challenged by Congress. The Republicans were unambiguous about this. My dad went to his grave thinking that Franklin Roosevelt was a tyrant. You know, that he had exceeded the authority and power that the Constitution gives the president. A lot of Republicans, you know, the vast majority of Republicans felt that way throughout FDR's presidency. And we're not shy about talking about it. A lot of newspapers and editorialists were saying the same thing. So if we get President AOC in 2028, or President Crockett, or, fill in your favorite progressive, right? President Ro Khanna. If we get a genuinely progressive president like we had in 1932 when Franklin Roosevelt was elected, if we get a genuinely progressive president, will that president then just say, to hell with the rules? I know Republicans don't want this stuff. I know Congress doesn't want this stuff, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because Trump rewrote the rules of the presidency. And we're going to have a national health care system. And we're going to have free college. And we're not going to engage in stupid wars overseas. And we're going to rebuild our alliances with other democracies around the world. And we're going to tax the rich. And we're going to bring back the American middle class. And we're going to do it whether the Republicans in Congress are squealing about it or not. This seems to me like, something viable. So anyhow, Alexander Burns is concerned. He says, if there was a chance to build a bridge to the 20th century, Biden lost it. The next time the country chooses a replacement for Trump, resurrecting the past won't even be an option. He says America's credibility as a trade negotiator and commercial power partner is already changed forever. That's a good point. I mean, Trump has just ruined our reputation around the world in terms of economics. He says the next president will be unable to restore Bush-era trade relations, even if he or she wants to. And then he says NATO's place in the world won't return to where it was just because the next president says the right words about Washington's commitments to its allies. And this is another very, very real problem. I mean, we had this huge propaganda network with the Voice of America that was broadcasting in dozens of languages all around the world, promoting the idea of democracy. It no longer does. The few stations that are still on the air are carrying right-wing content constantly, which praises Donald Trump as king, holds him up. Everything he does is perfect. And the biggest, our Russian language and our Chinese language, Voice of America, is gone. I mean, this was Trump's gift to the dictators that he views as his role model, and who, the Chinese enriched his daughter with all those patents, and the Russians, he cut a deal with Putin to have a Trump Tower Moscow hotel. He cut that deal right before the 2016 election. I mean, it didn't get built because he got elected. He wasn't expecting to get elected. But he was all in on, hey, let's do business with Russia. And both of his sons, oh yeah, we don't need American bank money. We've got plenty of money coming in from Russian oligarchs. Anything Putin wants, he gets from Donald Trump. And, George from Virginia called in earlier and said, Pravda is talking about this right now. The Russian newspaper, they're openly talking about this. How, thank you, Donald, for invading Iran. You're going to run out of weapons. You're not going to be able to supply Ukraine. And we're going to be able to take that upstart breakaway territory back into the, bloody arms of Mother Russia. I mean, consider where we're at right now. Consider where we're going. This administration does not embrace democracy. They don't embrace the rule of law. In fact, they violate it constantly. Tens of thousands of court orders have been ignored. 4,400 just in one court in one series of cases. And now they're trying to spread this around the world. We have an administration in power and lickspittle Republicans behind them who are supportive of right-wing movements. I mean, our Secretary of State going over to Europe and sucking up to AFD, the alternative for Deutschland. What's the alternative? Nazism. These people are Nazis, or wannabe Nazis, Nazis light. He was supporting Marine Le Pen in France. I mean, it's just... Anyway, where does this all go? What say you? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. It's 27 minutes past the hour. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where despair is not an option. We'll be right back. Free Speech TV is in their fund drive. Officially now, this is your opportunity, and it's a fine thing. It's a great thing to be able to explicitly support progressive media. I mean, there's not a lot of it out there to support, right? Here we are. So please call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org now. We're all, and make your contribution. And by the way, the monthly contributions are the best because then we can do budgeting. Then Free Speech, the people who run Free Speech TV can know what kind of income is coming in. It's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I know you want to support this program and you want to support Free Speech TV. And if you can afford it, please. And also check with them when you call in. Ask them about putting Free Speech TV in your will as well. I mean, that's a really cool thing that you can do, and it's a great source of revenue for nonprofits. So please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you.
Today we begin with a war that may shape not only the Middle East, but the future of the American Republic. The Trump administration has launched what I call Operation Epstein Fury, a sweeping assault on Iran that killed the country's supreme leader and struck more than 2,000 targets. 4 Americans are dead from retaliatory attacks. Civilians across the region are caught in the crossfire. Nearly 200 young people in Iran were reportedly killed when bombs hit a girls' school and a gymnasium. Congress didn't declare this war. There was no vote. The Constitution's clear that only Congress can take this nation into war. The War Powers Resolution requires notification and approval and an actual attack on America, which didn't happen. Instead, we have a unilateral decision that has set the region ablaze. James Madison warned us that war is the greatest enemy of liberty because it expands executive power and erodes democracy. He wrote that no nation can preserve its freedom in continual warfare. When a president claims authority to assassinate foreign leaders and ignite conflict without Congress, that's not strength. It's a direct challenge to the constitutional order that defines America. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump said the strikes were so successful they eliminated all potential successors to Iran's supreme leader. He said nobody else could have done this but him. He claimed an Iranian insider reached out to negotiate, although he declined to identify that person. Among the confirmed dead are senior advisors, top commanders, and a former president. Iran has installed a temporary council. Its leaders say they will not negotiate. The president says the conflict could last for weeks. History teaches that decapitation strikes rarely end wars. They fracture power and unleash militias and proxy forces. We saw it in Iraq and Libya. When a president boasts that he alone can reorder a region, that's not a strategy. It's a gamble with American lives and global stability. The Pentagon has offered no public evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. Reporting indicates the administration began constructing its legal justification after missiles were already in the air. There have been no detailed briefings and no intelligence presented to Congress. In a democracy, the burden of proof rests with those who send young Americans into combat. If there was an imminent threat, show it. If not, explain why this war was necessary. We cannot become a tool of political survival. When secret evidence replaces public debate, democracy is weakened. At the same time, a troubling development is unfolding here at home. ProPublica reports that senior administration officials attended a summit of election deniers, urging the president to declare a national emergency to take over the midterm elections this November. Federal officials responsible for election integrity and intelligence were also present. Draft orders reportedly circulating would ban mail-in ballots and eliminate voting machines under federal control. Activists argued that only the president can nationalize the vote. The Constitution gives states the authority over the elections, however. A president seizing control of the ballot would shatter 2 centuries of precedent. Combine a foreign war with talk of emergency powers over elections, and you see something more dangerous than partisanship. You see the architecture of authoritarianism. Democracy cannot survive when one person claims both the sword and the ballot. Finally, the administration is tightening an energy blockade on Cuba aimed at collapsing its government. Fuel deliveries are a fraction of what the island needs, and millions face water shortage. Food distribution is faltering. 5 million people with chronic illnesses are at risk as medicine supplies dwindle. The Cuban regime is repressive and has long denied its people freedom. But pushing a population toward humanitarian disaster is not a moral foreign policy. America's strength rests on aligning power with principle. So here we have war abroad, emergency powers at home, elections under pressure. The question before us is whether the United States will remain a constitutional republic governed by law or drift toward rule by decree. The founders feared concentrated power in times of war. Their warning echoes today. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. So back in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt became president, we were in the depths of the Great Depression. He raised the top income tax rate on billionaires from 25% to 90%. The ultra-rich were screaming. And here's what he had to say.
A number of my friends who belong in these very high upper brackets have suggested to me on several occasions of late that if I am reelected president, they will have to move to some other nation because of high taxes here. Now, I will miss them very much.
He just took it right to them, right? Now, what came out of that was the world's largest and fastest growing and first major middle class. We can do this again. We just have to raise taxes on rich people. It's pretty straightforward. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Welcome back, 35 minutes past the hour. So what's on your mind today? I'm guessing quite a bit. Tommy in Coconut Creek, Florida. Hey, Tommy, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Nobody's really talking about the Iranian, the coup, which was, I believe it happened because Mossadegh.
You're talking back in 1954 or 5, whatever year it was?
53.
53, thank you.
53. Mossadegh wanted the same deal that BP or APOC gave the Saudis, and they told him where to go. So he said, thank you very much. Here's $10 million for the oil fields you developed, and we'll handle our own oil.
Mm-hmm.
And then the coup happened. But what people are leaving out, some people do mention it, after we put the Shah back in power, we trained, the CIA trained his secret police.
Yeah, Savak.
And they tortured and murdered anyone who spoke out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if people wonder why Iranians hate the U.S., like, hello. And nobody's talking about that. The corporate media just goes back to 1979, and then they talk about, the Marines being bombed in Beirut, but nobody goes back to 1953. We have not stopped interfering in their country since, as far as I know, since 53. But the other thing, Israel owes Iran money when they had that shared pipeline. And Iran had to sue them 3 times, and so far they've won verdicts of like over $1 billion, but Israel won't pay. I mean, that would have gone a long way towards peace in the region had Israel just paid them what they owed them.
I'm unaware of that, Tammy, so I can't speak specifically to it. But I get the whole thing with Mossadegh. I mean, he was the first democratically elected leader for Iran, and he was modernizing the country we just made some terrible mistakes in the 1950s. And it wasn't just the Eisenhower administration, but every administration has made these terrible mistakes. And here we are living with it. And I think that we're doing it again. I don't think that the outcome of this is going to be neat or tidy or clean or whatever Trump thinks he's going to get. And this morning he was saying, well, yeah, it might go more than 4 or 5 weeks. That's not a limited engagement or a small effort. You're talking Afghanistan, Iraq kind of stuff, and we lost 7,000 people and we lost an estimated $7 trillion in those 2 countries, and it got us nothing. I mean, the Taliban this morning ruled in Afghanistan that it is legal for men to beat their wives as long as they don't break their bones or break their skin. I mean, that was what the result came out of our intervention in that country. This is just wrong. Tammy, thank you so much for the perspective. Mary in Seattle. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
Great show.
Thank you.
I'm concerned that looking at the Middle East and the history, we're talking about way back in Greek times and Alexander the Great and them trying to conquer. And don't forget the Crusades in the 1200s.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't win. All of that effort, all of that money, all of those deaths, they didn't win. They ran the people back into Europe that were coming for the Crusades. Then, we've been fighting over there in the Middle East since that we know 1200, okay? Mm-hmm. And we haven't won. We haven't conquered those people. And I think a lot of countries, Western countries, think we can go over there, push those people around, kill them, murder them, do whatever we want to do. Looking at Iraq when they had Saddam Hussein and disrupted a 1,500-year royalty reign in Iraq and caused all that mess with Saddam. Then they ended up going over killing him because they said, same thing. And I don't know how long it's going to take. You got Americans in America living in the streets, old sick people that helped this country, built this country, can't even afford rent, can't afford food. Children, they're cutting the school lunch programs. They're, doing
all to pay for tax cuts for billionaires.
From us. But, I heard Israel has free education, free medical, free a lot of stuff over there. That we don't have.
Yeah, and we send them billions of dollars a year as a result of the Camp David Accords.
They're filthy rich. And don't forget the many generations they've milked us saying they are the original Jesus. And then They said they're the ones that killed Jesus. How much money have they made promoting Jesus? Is this where he walked?
Well, religious tourism is a big thing in Israel, but I'm not going to criticize them for that. That is actually where Jesus was.
Yeah, I'm saying, they're making a lot of money off of that.
Yeah, let's not wander into anti-Semitic Jewish stereotypes here.
I'm not anti-Semitic. I was under that delusion that, we've got to protect the Israelis and we got to protect the Holy Land. And then I figured out, hey, they got free stuff over there. The housing is cheap. Yeah. You'll never do without because they have the kibbutzes. If you're homeless, they'll put you out there.
Yeah,
I know people.
They're doing fine, Mary. But let's just leave it at that. Mary, thank you for the call. Joe in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind today?
Hey, not much, Tom. Thanks for having me on as always. I did want to make a couple of points, and hopefully I'll get to my last one. You were talking about the Voice of America. They're currently broadcasting into Iran, telling them to take your government back. And I thought, where have I heard that before? January 6th. But they're telling them the same thing Trump told his followers, and they were expecting the National Guard and the military to come help them.
Yeah.
They really thought that was going to happen. The other thing I think is really important everyone should focus on, the Republicans in Congress are still blocking Congress getting the Epstein-related subpoenas for the banking records of Bank of America, who ran about $400 million for Epstein. And more importantly, the bank. Yeah, well, another one that ran right around that $500 million was the New York Bank of Mellon. Now, they're kind of interesting because they do a lot of banking with Israel, including they do all the banking for Elbit Systems. I don't know if you're familiar with Elbit Systems, but people should look them up. They're the primary provider of Israel's land-based and unmanned aerial vehicles. Now, when Trump took office, their stock was $200 a share. Right now, it's at $817. Wow. So if we could get pressure on Congress to get those banking records, which will then tie who was paying who related to Epstein for trafficking, for blackmail, it is the mother lode that they can't run away from, because then it'll
who's been talking a lot about this is Ron Wyden, my senator. He's the chairman, or the number 2 guy, because he's the Democrat, on the Finance Committee, the Senate Finance Committee.
Yep.
And he has been demanding these records. You're absolutely right. Joe, thank you very much. That was well said. Abby in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Hey, Abby, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. My head started going through a thought exercise, especially when I heard that Iran had closed the Strait of Hormuz. Over in this country, the price of oil has been so low that a lot of oil producers have just been keeping their wells shut down, waiting for the prices to go up again.
Right, and not drilling new ones.
Closed. Yeah, with the Strait of Hormuz closed, those prices are going up again big time, and it kind of goes back to the promise that Trump made to the oligarchs back in the pre-election days that I'll do anything you want. Well, these oligarchs are just dancing in the streets now because they're going to be getting in on those high prices, because this is the only country that has oil to be produced in a war-free zone now that the Mideast is cut off.
Yep, and Trump told them, give me $1 billion and I'll do anything you want. And he has done everything that they want. He's recalibrated our official government position on climate change. He's got the EPA. He's gutted all the rules that had to do with refineries and fossil fuel products. He's killed off all the green, projects, wind, solar, batteries, charging stations all across the country. All of this stuff he's just destroyed on behalf of the fossil fuel industry, which has, the Republican Party has been a wholly owned subsidiary of the fossil fuel industry since 1979 in a big way. And I think you could argue even before that. But really, they were the ones who floated Reagan into office in 1980. Abby, excellent point. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Well, Israel, it appears, is now in an active war with Lebanon as well as Iran. This thing is spreading. And welcome back. Placerville, California. Hey, Gabe, what's on your mind today?
Tom, how you doing? Hey, the gates of hell have been opened here, and I'm worried that this is going to spread well beyond the Middle East. And one of the reasons I think why is because of China, the dragon, and China has become the big loser here between this attack on Iran and U.S. action in Venezuela. They've basically had their oil cut off.
Yep.
And I think that's going to kind of put their back up against the corner, and they might just say, the hell with it, and they just might try to make a move against Taiwan while the U.S. is kind of preoccupied over in the Middle East with Iran. What do you think?
I think it's a very real possibility. I think they're keeping very careful track of what we're up to and what we're doing and whether or not we get tied down and how much of our munitions we've wasted. You're absolutely right. An awful lot of the Iranian oil was going to China through the Straits of Hormuz, and it's not right now. On the other hand, China is now generating about half their electricity from solar and wind. I mean, they have gone to alternative energy faster than any country on Earth. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah,
what
but
they still need a lot of oil.
Taiwan on that?
Say that again?
Can they invade Taiwan on that?
I don't think invading Taiwan has anything to do with oil. Invading Taiwan is just a long-held, desire of Xi and the people before him. I think that if they view us as weak, they will go after Taiwan. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that because in order just to fuel their military machine, in order to launch a military operation against Taiwan, they're going to need oil. Yep. They're going to need fuel for it.
That's a good point. I'm guessing that they have more than enough to deal with that. They have to. Yeah, the Chinese are long thinkers. I mean, they plan things very, very carefully, very well. So, but I think they're looking at with Ukraine. That we've just abandoned Ukraine to Putin, and Trump has. And I think that the Chinese are figuring that he would do the same thing with Taiwan. And I think they'd be right in that estimation. Gabe, thanks for the call. Great question. Charles in Vancouver. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey, good morning, Tom, and happy Monday once again, if there is such a thing. So the game show host stood in front of the podium the other day. He was wearing the white hat, and he was asking the Iranian people to stand up. And when he said that, I thought, well, sir, who should be standing up is the American people. Our Congress, the people that represent us. We should be standing up to you.
Yeah.
So, the irony and the hypocrisy just go way too far for me.
Yeah.
But as I shared with your screener, I have a dear friend she's from Iran and she has family there still. And so what do you think? And she says, well, the government there was certainly corrupt and, with the thousands of people tortured and killed. She said it might be a good thing. And I said, I don't know, but at what cost, at what price? And I certainly, Tom, if you have your 401k wrapped up in defense contracting companies and all that, you're probably pretty happy.
Yeah.
But I have to say, sir, that I don't want 18 billion of our tax dollars going to Israel.
Yeah, I'm with you, Charles. Charles, thank you for the call. It's 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
There is a house in Washington they call the
fall in one.
10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's up?
Hey, hi, Tom. Thank you for all you do. I am so upset, really, really mad with the military, number one, for following unlawful orders. And also the Republicans, as spineless they are. I have not heard a word about impeaching this guy from anyone, including the media. This guy is violating the law every single day, violating the Constitution. I mean, he has his thumb on the nuclear weapons, and no one is stopping this guy. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I share your outrage, Alfredo. This morning, I mean, both Hegseth and Trump were given multiple opportunities to give us a reason to attack Iran now. And both of them just kind of blithered, and they talked about, well, nuclear and, well, you know, ICBMs, but Iran has no nuclear and they've got no ICBMs.
They need to put pressure, the Democrats need to put pressure on the Republicans to impeach this guy. He's a loose cannon.
I agree. He did this to help himself out, to get Epstein off the front page. That's why I call it Operation Epstein Fury instead of Epic Fury. And to help his good friend Bibi Netanyahu, who used to sleep in the spare bedroom in Jared Kushner's home when he visited the United States back in the day.
I have no doubt, Tom, that this guy, he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. He doesn't want to leave office.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to stay in power.
I agree.
Republicans want the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll necessarily make it for another 3 years, but, you know, if he does, I don't know. We'll see, Alfredo. You know, he's got this weird rash on his neck this morning, so people are scratching their head around that, you know. But anyway, yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you for
everything. Thank you, Alfredo, yeah. Mike in Somerville, South Carolina. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
I'm calling because what happened with both in Venezuela and now in Iran, if the country would come and bomb the White House and kill the president, we'd be at war in a second.
Right. I get it. Mike, there's a weird noise here. I'm sorry, I can't deal with it. Thanks for the call. John in Roselle, Illinois. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Is that me?
That's you. You're on the air.
Yeah, okay. You know, I'm not actually Roselle, but I'm from the burbs, and I'm on vacation in San Diego now. So
okay.
Sorry about that. I thank you so much for all the educating you do for everybody and for me. I'm almost 65, been retired for a year, and I am still learning. And I understand how valuable airtime is, so I'm going to keep the tangents to support what I'm talking about very brief. I want to say that we need, in my opinion, as a person who is familiar with sexual abuse of children, it was in my family, not directly to me, but I know how damaging that stuff is. And what I think is needed, and I don't know how to go about approaching it, but something like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission they had in South Africa after apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only thing I can see worse than this abuse and the Epstein stuff is it's being used to subvert our government. It's bringing us to the verge of World War III. Remember 2016, how Trump was hated by the Republicans, by the Bushes, with more money than God, 2 ex-presidents and ex-CIA chief. How did he ever get over on them? Yeah. The only answer is that he had the goods on them with this stuff and was blackmailing them. If he was blackmailing them with financial stuff, at some point they would have come clean. They would have banded together, okay, we stole here and there, but we cannot let this man lead us to World War III.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of that they would simply refuse to come clean on is this Epstein stuff. And I know that what victims need is not for the state and society to take over and crucify the perpetrators, the ones we caught, and the rest of them just, well, we're going to go back into our denial. They need to be supported in an open atmosphere where they can confront their perpetrators. What's really needed is openness, and it's so hard for victims to open up.
I get all this, John. I don't share your opinion that Trump was blackmailing Republicans back in 2016. I think that what was going on was that people were sick and tired of 40 years at that time, something like that, of Reaganomics, of an economic system that had just gutted the American middle class. And they wanted genuine change. And Trump was saying that he was different. He was a change agent. The Republican Party at that point, people were just disgusted with the Republican Party. You know, Bush had lied us into 2 wars, and everybody had figured it out by that time. His tax cuts, Bush's tax cuts, had added, $10 trillion to the national debt along with his wars. And people were just like, okay, bring on a guy who says no more stupid wars, and and we're going to revive American business. I get it. The Epstein stuff is horrible, and the assault on these young girls, these women, is criminal. And there's no doubt in my mind that Epstein was blackmailing people. But I think if anybody was being blackmailed in the Trump orbit, it was probably Trump himself. And that it may well be Vladimir Putin who was doing the blackmailing, because something's got to explain why every time Putin snaps his fingers, Trump jumps. Trump does absolutely everything Putin wants. He's constantly echoing Putin's talking points. He's talking to Putin every couple of weeks on the telephone. And God only knows, how this thing in Iran is going to play out, given that Russia is an ally of Iran's. In fact, I want to talk about that in the next segment. But John, thank you for your call. I think that I'm calling this Operation Epstein Fury, and I notice that I'm not alone in that. Several people over on Daily Kos are calling it that. I've been calling it that, since it was launched on social media. I've been calling it that. And I think, that needs to be the meme that we all pick up. This is Operation Epstein Fury. This is the operation designed to get Epstein off the front pages, because it's increasingly looking like Trump was right in there with him, raping these young girls. It's the top of the hour. Russia is now claiming that Trump untied their hands. What the hell does that mean? We'll talk about that after the break.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros, like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
In 1851, the same decade that Charles Darwin published Origin of Species.
Throughout my life, I always felt that when I give to a charity, to a nonprofit, to a group that's doing good work, that's helping, improve the lives of others or make the world a better place, that I'm getting a bigger blessing than what I'm giving. I know this is part of a lot of religious ideologies or worldviews or perspectives, but it's just always seemed very real to me. And today is your opportunity to get that, whatever you want to call it, blessing, good feeling, high, a little bit of dopamine, by calling 877-378-8669 or going to freespeech.org and making your contribution to Free Speech TV. And particularly, if you can, make a regular monthly contribution. Become a sustaining supporter, somebody who every month gives a little bit to Free Speech TV. This is such a critical time for independent media and for our country. Thank you so much.
Today we begin with a war that may shape not only the Middle East, but the future of the American Republic. The Trump administration has launched what I call Operation Epstein Fury, a sweeping assault on Iran that killed the country's supreme leader and struck more than 2,000 targets. 4 Americans are dead from retaliatory attacks. Civilians across the region are caught in the crossfire. Nearly 200 young people in Iran were reportedly killed when bombs hit a girls' school and a gymnasium. Congress didn't declare this war. There was no vote. The Constitution's clear that only Congress can take this nation into war. The War Powers Resolution requires notification and approval and an actual attack on America, which didn't happen. Instead, we have a unilateral decision that has set the region ablaze. James Madison warned us that war is the greatest enemy of liberty because it expands executive power and erodes democracy. He wrote that no nation can preserve its freedom in continual warfare. When a president claims authority to assassinate foreign leaders and ignite conflict without Congress, that's not strength. It's a direct challenge to the constitutional order that defines America. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump said the strikes were so successful they eliminated all potential successors to Iran's supreme leader. He said nobody else could have done this but him. He claimed an Iranian insider reached out to negotiate, although he declined to identify that person. Among the confirmed dead are senior advisors, top commanders, and a former president. Iran has installed a temporary council. Its leaders say they will not negotiate. The president says the conflict could last for weeks. History teaches that decapitation strikes rarely end wars. They fracture power and unleash militias and proxy forces. We saw it in Iraq and Libya. When a president boasts that he alone can reorder a region, that's not a strategy. It's a gamble with American lives and global stability. The Pentagon has offered no public evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. Reporting indicates the administration began constructing its legal justification after missiles were already in the air. There have been no detailed briefings and no intelligence presented to Congress. In a democracy, the burden of proof rests with those who send young Americans into combat. If there was an imminent threat, show it. If not, explain why this war was necessary. We cannot become a tool of political survival. When secret evidence replaces public debate, democracy is weakened. At the same time, a troubling development is unfolding here at home. ProPublica reports that senior administration officials attended a summit of election deniers, urging the president to declare a national emergency to take over the midterm elections this November. Federal officials responsible for election integrity and intelligence were also present. Draft orders reportedly circulating would ban mail-in ballots and eliminate voting machines under federal control. Activists argued that only the president can nationalize the vote. The Constitution gives states the authority over the elections, however. A president seizing control of the ballot would shatter 2 centuries of precedent. Combine a foreign war with talk of emergency powers over elections, and you see something more dangerous than partisanship. You see the architecture of authoritarianism. Democracy cannot survive when one person claims both the sword and the ballot. Finally, the administration is tightening an energy blockade on Cuba aimed at collapsing its government. Fuel deliveries are a fraction of what the island needs, and millions face water shortage. Food distribution is faltering. 5 million people with chronic illnesses are at risk as medicine supplies dwindle. The Cuban regime is repressive and has long denied its people freedom. But pushing a population toward humanitarian disaster is not a moral foreign policy. America's strength rests on aligning power with principle. So here we have war abroad, emergency powers at home, elections under pressure. The question before us is whether the United States will remain a constitutional republic governed by law or drift toward rule by decree. The founders feared concentrated power in times of war. Their warning echoes today. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So, Darren32359 over on Blue Sky wins the internet meme of the day. He writes, saying you're no longer a Trump supporter is like saying you're no longer a cannibal. People might believe you, but no one's going to ask you to babysit their kids. Yeah, I think so. The Russians are responding to our attack on Iran. By the way, the Pentagon briefed, if you haven't heard this or read this or you weren't listening earlier when I mentioned this, the Pentagon briefed the staff members of Congress in a private classified briefing yesterday and acknowledged that there was absolutely no imminent threat of invasion or attack against the United States or U.S. bases or U.S. forces anywhere in the world coming from Iran. There was no threat. Iran had been essentially defanged. We took out their nuclear program last year. What might have been a nuclear program. Basically, this is about Bibi Netanyahu wanting to get reelected so he doesn't have to go to prison, and Donald Trump wanting to have an excuse to seize federal control of our elections this fall. Mark my words, he will figure out a way to use Iran to do something to or about our elections. But anyhow, the Russians have threatened to carry out a terror strike on Europe in response to this. This is fascinating. Now, this isn't Putin himself. I mean, Putin actually went on TV and expressed sympathy for Ayatollah Khamenei and said, it's a sad thing that he's gone and that sort of thing. But in fact, this is what Putin said. He said what Trump did was, quote, a murder committed in cynical violation of all norms of human morality and international law, which kind of, defines the old saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day. But what's interesting is the Center for National Interest is a Russian think tank within Russia, government-funded Russian think tank. And like in the lead up to Russia's attack on Ukraine back 5 years ago now, or four and some. These pundits from the Center for National Interest were, all over the place talking about how Russia really needed to take Ukraine. And then they did it. So they kind of presage things. They set the stage. They set the table, as it were, for the next step that Russia's going to take. So it's and they do it on national media. They do it on national televised media in Russia, in Russian, and that if they had said anything that did not comport with or agree with Putin's worldview or Putin's plans, that, not only would they not be on television, they'd be in a gulag someplace. So these two guys, Sergei Karnikov and Dmitry Simes, the former president, both of them, former presidents and CEOs of the Center for National Interest, and now they're pundits, right? They're commentators, talked about how Russia should respond to this. Now, keep in mind, the Baltic states, just below Finland, on the other side of the water there, Northern Europe, is Estonia, and then below that is Latvia, and below that is Lithuania, and below that is Poland. And these are the so-called Baltic states, because they're on the Baltic Sea. These states were part of the Soviet Union. And Putin wants them back. Just like Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, he wants Ukraine back. And so with that in mind, particularly Estonia, by the way, the Estonians have a fascinating history here, and also, you know, what they're doing with technology right now is pretty amazing too. But anyhow, here, with all that in mind, listen to this. This is the conversation that they had on Russian television, and I quote: "Estonia is waging war against us. I think we should give it some thought that Mr. Trump unwittingly created political and psychological opportunities for us. He untied our hands for our Supreme Commander-in-Chief, that's Putin, to do whatever he finds appropriate to do for the nation's security." And then the fellow that he was talking to, these are both former presidents of the Center for National Interest, the guy he's talking to says, "But what we see is happening, the only language Europe understands is the language of force, and only when that force is used against them. They saw that Oroshenko was used twice and decided they were protected in their little house. It's clearly time to strike their little house." So here we have the Russians saying, okay, now Trump has changed the rules of international conflict. It used to be against the law. I mean, you know, it still is, of course, but, you know, we used to respect the law that you don't attack countries that are non-combatants, that haven't attacked you first. Of course, Russia blew that up when they attacked Ukraine, both in 2014 taking Crimea and 4 years ago trying to take Ukraine proper. But now they're saying not only does Trump's behavior in Venezuela and Iran completely exonerate Putin. You know, it shows what Putin did was just fine. In fact, now we should be thinking about Estonia. And of course, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland will be next, or maybe Finland. And you just have to ask yourself, is this how this is going to play out? Because if Russia decides now would be a good time to chop off the eastern third of Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania or take a chunk out of Poland, and Russian generals, by the way, have been advocating this publicly for a couple of years now. If Russia decides now's a good time to do that, and China decides, hey, great time to take Taiwan, which, by the way, supplies the developed world, including the United States, with about 80% of our chips, what will we do? We've got the largest aircraft carrier in the world, the Gerald R. Ford, in the Persian Gulf right now, along with another one and a bunch of battleships and, you know, a lot of our resources there. Would we go to war with Russia and China to protect Estonia and Taiwan? I can't see Trump doing that. I think he would just say, fine, have them. I mean, what he has done to our country, what he has done to a world that was, you know, in reasonably good shape, and democracies around the world that were doing well, what Donald Trump has done is just absolutely astonishing and destructive to America, to world peace, to future presidents. I mean, it's going to take us a long, long time to dig out of the hole that he has put us in. It's just, and saying you're no longer a Trump supporter is like saying you're no longer a cannibal. People might believe you, but no one's going to ask you to babysit their kids. Yeah. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It looks, by the way, that the next country on Trump's bingo card is Cuba. I'll tell you about that after the break, and we'll pick up your call. And welcome back. Crystal in Ballinger, Texas. Hey, Crystal, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Oh, wonderful. nice to finally talk with you. My first time calling.
Well, thank you, Crystal.
Been listening for quite a while. Hunter from Klamath Falls turned me on to you.
Oh, cool.
And I wanted to call about how earlier in your show today you were kind of musing about how Trump would change the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think every president leaves some imprint on that office and over the years, for better or for worse, and sometimes a mix of those things. And but in Trump's case, it seems more like he is trying to create a world in his own image.
Mm-hmm.
And according to, which is kind of like his niece Mary would probably be able to describe it as some kind of God mentality. But I personally really think that the presidency should reflect the majority of the people.
Mm-hmm. And the values, the historic values of the nation.
And right now, it definitely does not look like that. And the other reason why I'm calling is not yesterday, but a week ago, Sunday, I was at the James Tallarico rally over in Midland, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That's a couple-hour drive for me.
Tomorrow is the primary for people listening who may not be familiar.
Yes. That's another item on my list here to tell you about is, primary is tomorrow, March 3rd. And turn out, folks. It's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
It's considered to be a battleground primary, the one going on right now in Texas.
Yeah.
More locally for me, I'm in District 11, which is also where Midland is. It's a very large district, and was recently redistricted to a weird little tail that goes down into Austin, of all places. Yeah, it got gerrymandered.
Yeah.
And I think they poked a bear, because a gal by the name of Claire Reynolds is running against the incumbent August Pfluger. And she's on the Democratic ballot, as well as I believe it's Pedro Ruiz. And I've met up with Claire a few times. I sat next to her at the Tallarico rally, and she really supports him a lot. But then again, he's from down where she's at, near Pflugerville.
Yeah.
So,
I'm super happy with either Tallarico or Crockett. I think it's going to be interesting to see how John Cornyn, if he changes his tune after this election, whether he wins or loses. Once he's passed his primary, he doesn't need Trump anymore, and that's going to be an interesting thing, because he's hugging Trump as hard as he can right now. Crystal, I got to run, but thanks for the call. Great to hear from you. Thank you. It's 19 minutes past the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back, 19 minutes past the hour. Cuba faces 0 hour. People are in a real crisis in Cuba. I mean, a serious, severe crisis. For example, this is from the United Nations, right? From their resident coordinator who lives in Cuba, works in Cuba. He said 5 million people on the island are living with chronic illness, and their treatments are at risk due to the energy crisis. The island has they've lost power, they've lost water, including thousands of cancer patients that need oncology care. There's more than 32,000 pregnant women who need services. Food security is deteriorating without fuel for trucks to deliver commodities. 1 million people face water shortages without electricity to pump their wells. And Trump just said, okay, we've got this embargo against Cuba. No oil can get into Cuba. We will make an exception for private, for-profit businesses in Cuba. They can buy oil from us. And so the delivery on that basis is estimated to be around 150 barrels a day. And the country uses 22,000 barrels a day. So this is just, you know, well, this guy says this is zero hour. There's no inventory, no strategic resources. They're screwed. And Rubio is basically saying, you guys want oil? You guys want your country back? Then, you know, we'll end the blockade if your administration basically goes away. You know, we want to go back to the days of Batista when the mafia and American businesses ran Cuba. We'll see where this goes. This is Sebastian Arcos, the interim director of the Cuban Research Institute at Florida International University, says there are a number of epidemics rippling through the Cuban population right now. Repression is increasing as the regime feels cornered, and they are not signaling any willingness to negotiate with the United States. This is an island of 10 million people. They've been hit really badly. I get it. The Cuban government is not and has not been since the Fidel era a small d democratic government. It's not the kind of regime under which I would want to live. And I've been to Cuba. And, you know, they've done some good stuff. I mean, you know, when they got rid of Batista, when Castro got rid of Batista, the dictator, you know, American propped up dictator and basically who was supported by the mafia. When they got rid of him, they did dramatically ameliorate poverty in the island by sharing the wealth, essentially. You know, they seized all the private property, everybody's homes, everybody's apartments, and then they just gave them out to people. And they radically improved their education system. I've seen schools, I've visited schools in Cuba. But they did it at the price of violent repression of free speech and dissent. And so, you know, on the one hand, I'm no big fan of the current Cuban or previous Cuban governments. On the other hand, I don't think that we should starve 10 million people in order to accomplish a political outcome. And that's clearly what's going on here. And it looks like the cheerleader for this thing is Rubio, who you know, made his political chops in Florida politics, first as a congressman, then as a senator, by claiming that he was a refugee from Castro, that his parents, actually, he was born after his parents came over here. But Castro took over in '59, and his parents came to the United States in '57. So they were not refugees. Although, you know, the whole mythology about Rubio is that I'm the son of refugees. So, you know, is this just Rubio trying to polish his credentials as a Cuban freedom fighter? Is this an effort by Rubio et al. to up his brand as we go into the 2028 presidential season and the Republican, you know, primary efforts or the Republican efforts to find a successor to Donald Trump? So far are focusing basically on two people, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. And, you know, Rubio is trying to hold it together. He's a canny politician. He's a smart politician. But using the lives of 10 million people like this for political purposes, I find that reprehensible. It's, you know, it's a siege. We're laying siege to Cuba. This is like the old castles in Europe, you know, you just surround it and starve it. Don't let any food in or out, you know, or don't let any food in, don't let anybody out. And pretty soon people are begging for their lives. And it sure looks like that's our goal in Cuba. So, all righty, what's on your mind today? Gar in Atlanta. Hey, Gar, what's up?
How you doing today, Tom?
Good. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it's good. what I want to talk about is the cost of a bomb. I mean, just one bomb.
Mm-hmm.
An MX missile costs over $250,000. Just one.
Mm-hmm.
Tomahawk cruise missile costs over $500,000 each.
Mm-hmm.
In that bunker buster, which, I don't know if we're using that anymore, it costs over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about the airplane that drops the bomb, it costs, I understand, like $14 million. And the aircraft carrier who carries the ship, they cost $1 billion. So what did General Smedley Butler once say? War is a racket.
Yeah.
And what did General Dwight Eisenhower? He coined the phrase military-industrial complex. And with that said, the United States been at war with somebody 2 out of 3 years since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a chicken hawk? What we used to call a chicken hawk?
I don't know. What, somebody who wants war but doesn't want to go to it.
Like a president who go to war, but when he had his chance to go, he didn't go.
Oh, yeah. And all three of his sons appear to have congenital bone spurs.
Yeah, and they call them chicken hawks. That's what we call them in the military, chicken hawks.
Yep.
They want a bomb, but they don't want to go. They want to send somebody else's child.
Yeah, at least John McCain had some credibility, when he was like bomb.
What did he call military people that got killed in combat?
Trump called them suckers and losers. Yeah, excellent points all.
Yep.
Thank you very much for that, Gar. Always good to hear from you. Appreciate it. 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls and a word from President Dwight Eisenhower right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the True People's Media, the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a minute. Hey, please pitch in. I mean, that's my simple message today. Please pitch in. Free Speech TV it literally only continues to exist because of you or people like you if you've not donated already. And if you have donated already, consider upping your donation, particularly if it's a monthly donation. Add an extra $5 a month. Or whatever you can afford. Please, if you can't afford this, don't do it. But if you can afford to skip a cup of coffee every month, or going out to dinner even every month, $100 a month, whatever you can afford, whatever feels right to you, please seriously consider making a contribution to Free Speech Today, becoming a member of our family, becoming a donor, particularly becoming a regular monthly donor, a sustaining donor. That's what keeps this network alive. 877-378-8669, freespeech.org. Thank you.
Today we begin with a war that may shape not only the Middle East, but the future of the American Republic. The Trump administration has launched what I call Operation Epstein Fury, a sweeping assault on Iran that killed the country's supreme leader and struck more than 2,000 targets. 4 Americans are dead from retaliatory attacks. Civilians across the region are caught in the crossfire. Nearly 200 young people in Iran were reportedly killed when bombs hit a girls' school and a gymnasium. Congress didn't declare this war. There was no vote. The Constitution's clear that only Congress can take this nation into war. The War Powers Resolution requires notification and approval and an actual attack on America, which didn't happen. Instead, we have a unilateral decision that has set the region ablaze. James Madison warned us that war is the greatest enemy of liberty because it expands executive power and erodes democracy. He wrote that no nation can preserve its freedom in continual warfare. When a president claims authority to assassinate foreign leaders and ignite conflict without Congress, That's not strength. It's a direct challenge to the constitutional order that defines America. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump said the strikes were so successful they eliminated all potential successors to Iran's supreme leader. He said nobody else could have done this but him. He claimed an Iranian insider reached out to negotiate, although he declined to identify that person. Among the confirmed dead are senior advisors, top commanders, and a former president. Iran has installed a temporary council. Its leaders say they will not negotiate. The president says the conflict could last for weeks. History teaches that decapitation strikes rarely end wars. They fracture power and unleash militias and proxy forces. We saw it in Iraq and Libya. When a president boasts that he alone can reorder a region, that's not a strategy. It's a gamble with American lives and global stability. The Pentagon has offered no public evidence that Iran posed an imminent threat. Reporting indicates the administration began constructing its legal justification after missiles were already in the air. There have been no detailed briefings and no intelligence presented to Congress. In a democracy, the burden of proof rests with those who send young Americans into combat. If there was an imminent threat, show it. If not, explain why this war was necessary. We cannot become a tool of political survival. When secret evidence replaces public debate, democracy is weakened. At the same time, a troubling development is unfolding here at home. ProPublica reports that senior administration officials attended a summit of election deniers, urging the president to declare a national emergency to take over the midterm elections this November. Federal officials responsible for election integrity and intelligence were also present. Draft orders reportedly circulating would ban mail-in ballots and eliminate voting machines under federal control. Activists argued that only the president can nationalize the vote. The Constitution gives states the authority over the elections, however. A president seizing control of the ballot would shatter 2 centuries of precedent. Combine a foreign war with talk of emergency powers over elections, and you see something more dangerous than partisanship. You see the architecture of authoritarianism. Democracy cannot survive when one person claims both the sword and the ballot. Finally, the administration is tightening an energy blockade on Cuba aimed at collapsing its government. Fuel deliveries are a fraction of what the island needs, and millions face water shortage. Food distribution is faltering. 5 million people with chronic illnesses are at risk as medicine supplies dwindle. The Cuban regime is repressive and has long denied its people freedom. But pushing a population toward humanitarian disaster is not a moral foreign policy. America's strength rests on aligning power with principle. So here we have war abroad, emergency powers at home, elections under pressure. The question before us is whether the United States will remain a constitutional republic governed by law or drift toward rule by decree. The founders feared concentrated power in times of war. Their warning echoes today. And that's the way it is today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So Republicans are constantly trying to figure out ways to prevent people from voting. Why? Because they have nothing to offer people other than, bigotry and misogyny and hate and stuff like that. Oh, and tax cuts for billionaires. So in 2020, the early polling down in Texas was showing that Donald Trump was going to lose to Joe Biden. Now, keep in mind, this was also during the pandemic. And so Attorney General Ken Paxton, Republican, now impeached, came up with a bright idea to scare people away from voting in Harris County, exclusively in Houston. 4.7 million people, 2.5 million registered voters. And so he forbade the county from mailing out applications for mail-in ballots, and then went on Steve Bannon's show to brag about how they wanted to send out 2.5 million ballots, and we were able to stop every one of them, thus giving the election to Trump in Texas. It's amazing. There's a whole piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. So just, a caller in the just before the break reminded me of this little clip. This is Dwight Eisenhower, the former Republican president of the United States, the commander-in-chief of the U.S. forces. I forget his exact title in Europe. He's the guy who won the war against the Nazis. So this is a man who had worked his way up from the bottom to the absolute top, to President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief of the military, and fought in World War II. His thoughts on how we should think of war. Here he is, President Eisenhower.
Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 population. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It is some 50 miles of concrete pavement. We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people. This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. Under the cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron.
That's from his speech, this often referred to, for reasons you can tell, as his cross of iron speech, or Iron Cross speech, but absolutely brilliant. And that's what's going on right now. Donald Trump is pissing away billions of dollars probably every half hour in the Middle East right now to get us to not talk about the fact that the Epstein files are increasingly showing or suggesting that he was raping 13-year-olds along with Jeffrey Epstein. He doesn't want us talking about that. He doesn't want it exposed. And Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to go to prison. He's got to get himself reelected. And there's an election coming up in Israel. This is going to help him tremendously. Hey, you got America to fight against the great, the great enemy for us. This is just outrageous. Ed in Belfair, Washington. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. Can you hear me okay?
Just fine, Ed, yeah.
Well, I was going to go short and sweet that I'm not allowed to actually say his name. My daughter says she doesn't want to hear it, so we call him Parasite. But anyway, the main thing about this guy is it's all about conquer and divide, or divide and conquer. He wants to pit everybody against everybody. It's all about hate. Everything's about hate with this guy. But I just wanted to say to him and his followers, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. And they are so scared of what, the Democratic Party and us progressives want to do to help everybody, that it scares them to death. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why that is. I have good friends, believe it or not, that still think Trump, but we talk policy most of the time. So, but I just am sick and tired of the hate in this country. Mm-hmm. It's poison. Hell, but it's poison. But I'm looking forward to the 28th of this month to be around a bunch of fellow like-minded humans. But I thank you for your voice, Tom. I appreciate it.
The 28th, of course, is the next No Kings rally. Thank you, Ed. Spot on. Letty, in San Antonio, Texas. Hey, Letty, what's up?
Hi. It's my first call. It's very nice to hear your voice. So anyway, I have first a comment and then a quick question if you'd comment on my question.
Sure.
My comment is, after listening to Hegseth and Trump and their glee over bombing Iran, it's as though they act like they're playing a virtual reality game. It's pretty disgusting. Yep. And then secondly, on this question, the Supreme Court, why, or do they realize that the more they give in to what could be a possible dictatorship, do they not realize that at the same time they'll lose all their relevance? Mm-hmm. That's about it.
Yeah, with regard to the Supreme Court, I think that Well, and Hegseth, yeah, I agree with your analysis of Hegseth and Trump, that this is just a game for them. These guys are, in my opinion, psychopaths or sociopaths at the very least. They don't view other people as human beings. They've both been through multiple wives. They've both cheated on their wives. They both have just absolutely disgusting pasts. But with regard to the Supreme Court, what's going to be real interesting are the next couple of rulings that come down, because the court, after Trump slapped them down on the tariff ruling, is going to do one of two things. Either they're going to roll over and say, okay, Donald, we will continue to suck up to you the way that they were doing during their vacation when they kept doing these shadow rulings that were in his favor. Or they're going to say, enough already. We are an independent branch of government. We are 1/3 of the United States government. We are asserting our independence, and this is the way it is. And I don't think anybody knows which way they're going to go. So, stay tuned, I guess, Letty.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for all you do.
Yeah, thank you. Good talking to you, Letty. Nice. I appreciate the call. Thank you. Casey in West Palm Beach, Florida. Hey, Casey, what's on your mind today?
It was always good to chat with you. I got a question for actually a couple comments, if it's okay, and I wanted to get your feedback. Netanyahu was already globally considered a war criminal.
Oh, he's been indicted.
Right. So, okay, I didn't know he was indicted. Well,
yeah, the International Criminal Court has indicted him for crimes against humanity, for war crimes in Gaza.
With that said, does that make Trump, not saying a double war criminal, but two ways to be a war criminal, that he basically provoked this war, and we are abetting, or what's the word I'm looking for, or helping a war criminal? The U.S. now is considered, so is the U.S. now globally considered a war criminal country?
I think so. I mean, this morning, or maybe it was last night, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, did a whole TV address essentially saying, we are not going to participate with this war. Now, they went side by side with us, both in Afghanistan and Iraq. They lost soldiers, they lost money, they lost hardware, and ultimately they lost face because Tony Blair had been so gung-ho around George W. Bush's war plans. And he was lying to the British people just like Bush was. I'm not sure if he knew that he was lying, but he bought it hook, line, and sinker. Starmer isn't doing that. He's saying enough already. He didn't come out and say you guys are committing a war crime here, but he didn't have to.
But the thing is, though, I know we've had this talk, and I keep saying it, that the Democratic Party has made us defenseless. I'm sorry. It says we can't do anything. Like, I mean, they're sitting there. I understand about the Epstein files. I think we should be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. But why?
What would you have the Democrats do that they're not doing right now, Casey?
Well, he's gone. We've gone into we've gone into Iran. We've gone into Venezuela. Now we're liberating supposedly liberating all these countries. Okay, we're causing these wars, right? I mean, constitutionally or whatever it is. I know Raskin is a constitutional scholar. There's got to be something that they can use a trump card.
There are war powers bills being sponsored in both the House and the Senate by Democrats that would force Donald Trump to immediately stop his attacks on Iran and prove that there was some interest for the United States in this. I would like to see an investigation also of where the money went from the Venezuelan oil.
Right, but DOJ, they're not going to investigate.
I don't think that that's true, Casey. I think if the Democrats had the ability to investigate it, they'd be doing it. I'd like to see more political theater from them. I'd like to see shadow hearings on these things. But I share your concern about the leadership of the Democratic Party. I think both Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are way
honestly,
too milquetoast.
If we lose the midterms, I mean, we're seriously going on a suicide mission with no plan. They're just hoping that people had enough of Trump. Is that a plan, though?
Well, it may be, but no, they've actually promoted a lot of very positive things. But right now, we've got to stop the move toward fascism. Casey, thanks for the call. It's 44 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Fair and only slightly unbalanced. I'll be right back with your calls. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Sean in Britain, South Dakota. Hey, Sean, what's up?
Oh, hi. Two comments. I originally started with one, but the gentleman who said to the Republicans, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I would like to remind him that a lot of these people are on a holy crusade. Fear doesn't factor into it.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah.
And then the question that I had for you. So you said, mark my words, he will use Iran as an excuse to take over the elections.
Yeah.
And my question is, we've all known that he would do something, and we're all protesting and doing what we can, but what do we do when that happens? I don't hear anybody talking about a plan. If there is a plan, I'm not in on it, and I'd really like to be.
We have to absolutely raise holy hell. We have to get out in the streets. We have to call our members of Congress. We need to call all our local, your local elected officials, everybody. Write letters to the local paper, scream on social media. I mean, what else can we do, Sean? I don't want you to burn down people's houses or something. I mean, we've got to do the peaceful stuff.
Well, no, neither do I, but I would be greatly comforted if the DNC would start figuring out what they are going to do.
Yeah.
And I'd really like it if you asked every politician and every scholar that you talk with on this show that question to see what, you get a number of different thoughts and maybe a plan will begin to come together.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I'm waiting for something to happen when I know something's going to happen, but I don't have any tools to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, Sean. I mean, we're watching in real time a democracy be converted into a competitive autocracy, basically. A country like Russia and Hungary, where you still have elections, but they don't mean anything. And I'm very conservative. I have no glib answer for you. I'm sorry. It's going to take a lot of work by a lot of people.
Yeah, let's start asking the question, and maybe somebody will have a better answer so far than we've come up with.
Well, I will continue to ask that question of these people. Sean, thank you. I share your passion. Thank you. Eric in Mojave, California. Hey, Eric, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Long time no talk. There's an old saying, you can fool half the people all the time and all the people half the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time.
Yeah,
I want
Lincoln.
the Americans, the Iranians, the Israelis not to be fooled. Bibi and Trump do not care about the Iranian people. They do not care about the Israeli people, and definitely Trump does not care about America first. All they care about is staying in power.
Yep.
On October 7th, it took the IDF 8 hours to respond to that attack. 8 hours.
Yep.
That's taking their response a little slow. The Iranian Ayatollah, he killed 30,000 people, and it took Trump, 3 weeks to respond. That's taking your response a little slow.
Right.
I just don't want everybody to be conned, and I just blame the DNC back in 2016 and in 2020 for tipping the scales against Bernie. Imagine where we would be if we had Bernie Sanders as president for the last 8 years.
Yeah. I have imagined that many times, Eric. I get it. I get it. Eric, thank you for the call. We'll be back on the other side of the break here with more of your calls. Stay tuned. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So every time we have an election, I mean, most recently we saw this in 2022, Putin and Mohammed bin Salman, Russia and Saudi Arabia, start raising the price of oil, basically to stick it to the Democrats, hoping that they can lose power. I mean, it worked in 2022. They got their majority in the House of Representatives. And you'll recall all those $6 gasoline and $5 gasoline, and everybody squealing about it, and the little stickers they were putting on pumps with pictures of Joe Biden saying, I did this. Well, they're preparing to do it again. They've cut production, Saudi Arabia and Russia, And it's going to get a whole lot worse over the course of the next year as we're heading toward 2024. So what can we do about this? Well, I have a very specific proposal. And by the way, 70 different environmental groups have joined in this, along with Senator Ed Markey and several members of Congress. And that is to ban the export of American-produced crude oil. Make America energy independent, and we control the price. There's a piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Picking up your calls here. Alan in Brunswick, New Jersey. Hey, Alan, what's on your mind today? Alan, listening on Sirius XM in Brunswick, New Jersey. Going once, going twice. Josh in Miami, Florida. Hey, Josh, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Professor. I was just wondering, is there a plan to maybe offer a resolution to vacate the chair? It feels like there's enough sort of support even from a couple of Republicans to make that happen, and maybe we get Jeffries in there. I know he's not the greatest, but we would actually start some legislation and some, trials.
There's no way that Thomas Massie is going to vote for Jeffries, no. It would take Massie. You don't have MTG anymore. Boebert is flaky.
Bacon?
Maybe Don Bacon. I would, frankly, I'd love to get him on this program. I think he's a very interesting character, but I don't think that any of those guys, I think that would be political suicide. There is...
Yeah, but Massey's done, though, right? I mean, he doesn't have anything to lose. Bacon's probably also, there's probably NC
Bacon is retiring, yeah. Yeah, Massey is fighting back. I mean, you've got right-wing billionaires who have funded a massive campaign against Massey in Kentucky, and I haven't seen any polling on it. I don't know if it's actually hurting him or if it might even be helping him. My guess, though, is that it'll hurt him. So we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. But I don't think that that's going to work. If any of the Democrats thought that would work, they would have done it. I can guarantee you that, Josh. But on the other hand, you've got another Republican who was just diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he's going to probably be dead within a year. And he's hanging on to his chair, and there's pressure to get him out of there. Then you got this guy down in Texas who was having an affair with one of his aides, and she committed suicide. And they're pushing to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So if 2 or 3 more Republicans fall, then you vacate the chair and you flip it over to Hakeem Jeffries, but probably not before. Josh, I got to run. Thanks for the call. Gail in Lake Forest, North Carolina. Hey, Gail, what's up?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I live near New York City. I grew up hearing my father and my grandfather rant about the Trump family. And it was the mafia and people disappearing and, but I want to focus on 2 people that died. And first of all, I'm a nurse. And when Epstein died, there was people that said, well, the camera was off and, people who had been in that cell, there's no way he could have hung himself. And then it was kind of just put under the fray. Nobody talked about it. It sure sounds like that was a setup.
Well, his brother is claiming that they did an autopsy and his hyoid bone was broken, which doesn't happen when you hang yourself, but does happen when somebody strangles you.
Exactly. I'm a nurse, and then when I heard that, I said, oh, my gosh, who's on this? Who's on Ivana's death?
Yeah, Ivana fell down the stairs, just like in Moscow.
Yeah, she knew that staircase. And the injuries that she had, and I read about them, sounded like she was really pushed, had broken bones that should not have happened. And he had her cremated and in the golf course before anybody could even look at that. Yeah. But he grew up with the mafia, Roy Cohen. People were missing, and outside of New York City, he learned well.
Yeah, and Roy Cohen, who was Trump's mentor, was also the main lawyer for several of the mafia families in New York City. You're absolutely right. Yes. And Trump did business with them. In fact, he bought concrete for Trump Tower from was it the Genovese family, as I recall, who was running the concrete business. Yeah. No, I get it, Gail. Yeah. I get it. He's as corrupt as they come. Gail, thank you. Angela in New York City. Hey, Angela, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. How are you? What's on my mind? Very, very quickly,
I disagree with you on one thing, and this is something that I've been thinking about. You called this, and a lot of people call this Operation, Epstein Fury, and trying to distract from the Epstein files. I really don't think that Trump cares about the files, and the reason being is because he's a narcissist and a psychopath. He said himself that he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and still get elected. He just blew up a school and killed 200 little girls. Do you really think that he cares if there's anything out there that shows?
I think he does. I think you could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people will forgive you. I think when you rape 13-year-olds, it's a whole different thing.
I don't know about that. I think this whole thing is a follow the money. I think what it is basically the Epstein files. First of all, they're out there. I've read them. I've read some of them. They're horrific. I can't believe that they are out there. It just doesn't feel right to me. To me, what I think is happening is basically that Trump is just a useful idiot. He is in this to make money, make as much money as possible. When in reality, what's really going on is the people behind him that are putting him in this position, they're the ones benefiting. They want to destroy this country. He's going to destroy this country, and he's going to leave us to the mercy of the people who wrote Project 2025 and the right-wing billionaires.
Well, they got their tax breaks and their deregulation.
We're losing our rights daily.
Yeah.
I won't be able to vote. Okay, if we even have midterms, which, by the way, don't get me started on Congress because they're completely useless.
I know.
Even if we have midterms, I won't be able to vote because I can't prove, or I won't be able to show. I was married. My name was changed.
Yeah, I get it. Angela, I'm sorry I'm out of time, but thank you for the call. That was well said and very passionate. Thank you. And thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. That includes you, so get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe, and I will catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out. Last chance today, at least during the last minute of my show, to participate, to become a member of our family, to join those of us who support Free Speech TV by calling 877-378-8669 or going to freespeech.org and making your contribution. There's some great premiums. All that is wonderful stuff, including, my book, The Last President, Last American President. But most importantly, you are helping sustain, and if we can hit our goal and maybe surpass it a little bit, strengthen one of the real independent media pillars in the United States. This is the only genuinely progressive nationwide television network. And it only exists because of your help. So please, go to freespeech.org and make your contribution, and a monthly contribution is the very best. Or call 877-378-8660. Thank you, sir.